right. Thank you so much for joining us again, and welcome to Adobe Live, where for over 3 days we'll be covering incredible video creation from a host of different artists. Today we're joined with Mr. Matt Eastin, editor and director of the Imagine Dragons video Believer, among others. We're going to be talking about some different ones today. Thank you for coming back again, Matt.
Thanks. It's fun.
We had an awesome time yesterday, really
that was
kind of
fun.
diving into the raw media that you use to cut Believer. And today we're going to do a different video and kind of break that down and again show your actual timeline, show the process. And this is all the raw footage, so people got a taste of, how it was graded, how you were using overlays and lots of different, just very cool, unique techniques to create this very stylized look. And we're going to kind of revisit that today. Keep in mind that, again, we have another session tomorrow, again, 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. Pacific time. Also, we're featuring our Make the Cut contest in support of Premiere Pro's 25th anniversary, hashtag Premiere Pro 25. So if you haven't learned already, if you go to makethecut.adobe.com, you have the chance to win $25,000 by re-editing the masterwork of this man right here. Do you think you can make the cut? Time is running out. The contest ends April 8th. So again, you've got about 17 days now. Download the footage, register, and start cutting something and start making something awesome. And you were actually saying yesterday you're really excited to see what people are doing.
And intimidated. That I'm just going to get totally upstaged. And I expect it, so. He's
not only a deep-voiced and handsome man, but a humble man. These are the kinds of things I say live. Okay, so now, so we're going to cover roots today,
That's right?
We're going to talk about roots. So anything you can say before we start looking at footage, and I know people... Oh, and once again, where is everybody? Where are you coming from? It's now the afternoon. We've already been streaming for 4 hours. Tell us where you are. Say hello to Matt.
All right. Cool.
We got
In the meantime, I'm going to get the mouse and the keyboard hooked up here.
Oh, they should be connected, right?
Nope.
No, still not?
Oh, sorry, bump the monitor. One second. Sorry, I'm just going to slide out of frame for a second.
We are live. All right, we've got someone from northern Germany.
Cool.
Brighton, UK. Peru.
So how do these people find out about the live stream?
Well, of course, we encourage you to follow the Creative Cloud YouTube channel, and you'll notice if you're watching at adobelive.com, on the bottom left, I believe, there's a subscribe button. Oh, there it is. Oh, nice. Your headband. Oh, nice. Got a little bit of Dan going through the top of your cranium.
I'll have to grab one of the other ones.
That's pretty cool, actually. Oh, yes.
Yep.
Password.
Live TV.
Yeah, live TV. All right.
Right.
Easy one. All right.
Okay, got it.
So, here it comes. Greece, Long Island. Hey from Ren, Canada, Sweden,
right on.
Germany, New York, Edinburgh, Vancouver, Austria, Denmark, Raleigh, North Carolina. Very nice to see you all. Alabama, thank you so much for joining me. Norway, Serbia, Michigan, South Korea. Wow, awesome. Bitchin' here. Thank you very much, Sam. But that could be for you too, my friend.
No, that's for you. That's for you.
Utah, Maddie's hometown from Ren Whiteman. All right, nice. Thank you so much.
What's up,
On
Ren?
Uruguay as well. I think you had someone from Uruguay. All right, Andres. Could be the same. Could be different people. A lot of people in Uruguay. Hard to say. No, okay, very nice. And thank you for watching. Oh, you're living in Burbank. Okay, well, that counts too. All right. So, so we're going to take a look at roots. And again, yesterday, we actually got to see Matt's original cut, his actual timeline. And as I mentioned yesterday, I told him, please don't clean it up. Leave it how it was when you finished.
Right.
And
I mean, Believer was a mess, and I got a little bit of feedback about that, which I deserved.
Okay,
it was a messy timeline.
We'll take your word for it.
Right. This one's a little cleaner. It's still a little messy.
I will say, just looking at it visually, even zoomed out, it looks very clean compared to
Believer.
Yeah.
Believer was like, what, 13 tracks and just... It
was
chaos.
A lot of different colors that were
it was
related.
real life.
But I think that's awesome because I think it's, again, this is the way that these things often come about. And you talked about compressed time schedule, compressed shooting schedule. Want to emphasize again, for those of you who are entering Make the Cut, all shot with one camera.
Right.
So you'd think, oh, it's Imagine Dragons making a new hit song. Sure. Multiple cameras shooting from all angles.
Yeah,
one camera.
One camera.
All of the motion in the camera that you see, where there's a lot of push, and it was all done in post. It's all done in Premiere.
Believer, that was all. I mean, there were a couple of dolly shots that are obvious dolly shots, but all of those zooms, all of that was post.
And we got to see that. And then again, just the way that you kind of very stylistically overlaid some of those backing plates and the laser light and the fog, the real fog and then the fake fog or fake smoke. It was really cool. And I think yes, as you're saying, it was messy and kind of. I mean, it makes sense because I think that's often how these things unfold.
Right.
And in the end, hey, the band gave you the thumbs up, and it's a hit song and hit video.
Right.
So, and we're again so glad to have you here. So, what can you tell us about? So, yesterday again, crunch time schedule.
Right.
Crunch production schedule. How did this one differ? And we'll have you play the video too. Maybe we'll go to just YouTube.
In fact, it'd be good for me because this one came out at the end of 2015, so I could probably use a refresher on the cut. But this one kind of came about the same way that Believer did. Believer, I was in the car when I got a call from the band, and it was this crazy timeline.
Right.
So this one was even is an even better story because I'm laying in bed. It's 2 a.m. I knew that Imagine Dragons was on tour.
Right.
I mean, they're buddies of mine.
Right,
I follow them. I usually keep up with Instagram and everything, see
sure.
where they are. And I knew they were on their way to Australia.
Right.
And I got a call from Dan at 2 a.m.
Right,
yeah, exactly.
Right,
And he says, and he's just like frantic. Matt, it's like, we've got a day off this Friday in New Zealand. It's like, we need to shoot a music video that day. I'm like, yeah, great. And it was really just like this, you know, I'm like half awake.
Right.
I'm like, yeah, all right, New Zealand, okay. And, you know, the wheels start turning like, what do you want to do while you're there? He's like, I don't know, but I want it to be real. He's like, we've done a whole bunch of really produced videos.
Right, okay.
That are very conceptual. He goes, I just want to make something that's very real.
Right, okay.
And he's like, and it'll be just me this time. The band had been on tour longer than most bands ever tour in their whole career.
Okay.
And so they were on their like 300th day of tour or something
so they were
crazy.
They were
like
just
that.
burned,
so burned out.
They didn't want to be on camera mimicking, miming, doing any
they
of that
wanted
stuff.
sleep. Yeah.
Spain, Romania, Amsterdam, Halifax, Nova Scotia, Sacramento, Fountain Hills Town. Very nice to see you all.
How do I stop getting sick of the song? That's a great question. I hope someone can give me the answer.
I was going to say,
that.
for which there is no answer
No.
at present, yes.
For the Roots video, I got that call, booked flights, started talking to Dan on different phone calls about like what we wanted to try and do.
Right.
Like even calls where I'm standing in the airport. Like I'm ready to get on the plane. Let's talk about what we want to try and do one more time.
Right.
And so the crew was me, Ty Arnold, the DP.
Yeah. Same as on Believer, right?
Same DP as Believer. And then when we landed in New Zealand, we had talked to Augusto. It's a production house that's in New Zealand, and we basically had them set us up with like a fixer, just like a guy who knows his way around,
cleaner fixer.
Yeah, who has like a vehicle.
Right.
So the crew was
right.
me and Ty, and then this cool guy from New Zealand named Glenn Manchester, and that doesn't even sound like a real name. It sounds like a stage name.
Sounds like a fixer's name.
Yeah, and he had like the really cool beard, like the really cool clothes,
cool car,
cool car. He like lives in a tent most of the time. He's just like one of those guys.
Right, that's awesome. Okay.
It's like a mountain man.
Yeah.
Nice. So that was the whole crew. So.
This just seems unconscionable. I mean, I know it's true, but again, really?
Yeah.
Okay.
I know.
All right. So here's what we should do. Let's
Here, I'm just gonna quickly.
Do you have an export of it actually?
I do, and in fact, I brought it in here because I know this was before the proxies were ever available. Right. So the proxies were never.
We can just play it in QuickTime, hopefully.
Yeah. So right here, this. Just because we're talking about it. There's our crew. So we've got Dan on the left, lead singer. We've got Ty Arnold, the DP. There's Glenn Manchester, of course.
All right.
There's me, and then there's our fancy camera on the ground. And we shot that one, I think, with a Red Dragon.
Right. That's right. Yes, I remember you telling me this. Okay.
And it was a camera that we were able to get in New Zealand on short notice.
And he handled all of that, the gear.
So he shows up.
Right.
Exactly.
That's awesome. Okay.
So anyway, that's the whole crew.
That's the full crew.
That's the crew photo. I brought in a master right here so we can watch it from the top.
Nice.
And then I can explain some of it after. There's a particularly long intro that I can explain why we did it.
Okay. And here we're going to use it.
Okay, got it.
Full screen on this.
Oh yeah, sorry. I always forget what they're looking at. So this was an A7S II right here because we needed some really great low light for some of this behind the scenes stuff. Sorry, I don't know if I should talk through any of this.
Yeah, I think we're okay. And this is real. This is not staged.
No, there's nothing.
Just finished the show.
This is documentary.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
They look like a band who's been on tour for 300 days. Not talking.
They had run into Dave Grohl a few days before backstage at an award show, and Dave Grohl, who is obviously a rock and roll legend, came up to Dan and said, "I saw your tour schedule. You guys are crazy." He's like, "I've never seen a tour schedule that crazy." We literally got a key to Dan's room and went in around 8 a.m. and sat there quietly until he woke up to get that shot.
Right.
It's already this theme between like being a kid and an adult.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know if that's more me or more Dan or both.
Yeah.
But
I'd say a combo of both, probably.
yeah. They really caught a fish.
And this is all Red Dragon, all this footage here?
This is Red Dragon and Sony A7S II. Yeah. Because sometimes Ty would be shooting and I would pick up the other camera and just try to get some stuff.
Yep.
There was only room for me in the boat, so I took a tiny camera out there with me.
Makes sense, right.
Ty shot wide shots from the shore.
Also, less expensive should something happen whilst on the boat.
Absolutely. Yeah,
Don't want to drop the dragon in the water.
Exactly what we were thinking.
Yeah. And those shots, presumably all 120 frames.
These rugby shots,
yeah,
exactly.
Yeah, gorgeous. Love this part. Just a lot of time remapping here, just speed, duration changes. And
On the overlay?
Yeah, just tons of overlays.
Yeah.
Footage, yeah. What I love too is he looks almost exactly the same. Really, I mean, his face didn't change.
When he was a kid?
Yeah, as an
agree.
adult. I mean, he really, it's the same face, you know. And this from black and white to color. So awesome. Dude.
Cool.
So
cool.
awesome.
It's been a while since I've watched that.
But
I usually don't watch edits after I do them.
Oh, I was going to ask you
ever.
that too. Yeah. Is it just weird, or you're just kind of sick of it and you just want to detach, or
it's because all I can ever see are the errors,
the things you could have done differently, or
and especially once it goes to YouTube, I can't watch it because if something happened in the upload and I see that it's wrong, I know I can't fix it anymore, and I don't want to ever think about the fact that it's up there and something's wrong that I can't change, and so I'd just rather not know.
So now. Fial's asking, how long did Dan stay underwater for? So that's a good starter question. How did you even capture those? How did he hear the music well enough to be able to kind of convincingly, mime his own lyrics?
So we sped up the song to 200%.
Okay.
250% is
so he'd have to be underwater less time.
Yeah, exactly. So he could say the words faster while he's underwater, but that was all real. He was really underwater.
Right.
A lot of people thought that wasn't real
like
when the video
effect.
came out. Yeah. But I mean,
he's in a tub or something.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Like he is in the tub of the hotel room in New Zealand where we were staying because that's what we had access to.
Right.
So
sounds big budget, you know.
Yeah, exactly, right? Exactly.
Anybody got a bathtub around here?
Right.
Lay in for an hour?
Somebody have one. Our room only had a shower, so we couldn't use it.
Right.
Yeah.
So that's interesting. Okay, so that's actually really interesting. So, and I would imagine it makes sense in terms of sort of being able to properly retime his mouth against the song, but at the same time, hearing it underwater 2.5 times faster. That had to have been kind of
Part of it is that Dan's such a pro.
Yeah.
I mean, there's in a different video, he jumped off of the top of the stratosphere, lip syncing a song on a zip line with no playback.
No playback.
And we adjusted nothing. He just hit it.
Just hit it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so I know that it's a different thing when it's double speed, but it was like Ty standing, like straddled over the bathtub with the red.
Right.
Obviously, like, we didn't even have a tripod
I was
or
gonna
anything
say,
above it because we didn't have a place to put it.
Right, no.
So he's handheld, and I am holding my phone next to the water,
Blasting
playing the
2.5
song,
speed song. Oh my
and then I
gosh.
have a little tiny battery-powered LED light in my hand that I'm holding right over Dan's head. So I'm holding the phone, and I'm holding the light, so that we can light Dan's face, and so that you can hear the song, and Ty's shooting. And so it was, there were 3 of us in the room.
Right.
Glenn had gone home for the night.
Right.
And so, he was in the tent.
Right, his job was done for the day.
Exactly.
Right. Wow.
And so, I wish we had a behind-the-scenes photo of that, but there was no one there to take the photo.
You're just holding one of those little portable square LED
it's like,
lights?
just like, like $200.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because that's what we had in the room. And I love how it turned out.
Nah, it's gorgeous. And again, so that's shot Red Dragons. For those unfamiliar, Red Dragon is a 6K camera. Presumably, though, you did what you showed us yesterday, Believer, cut in 1080.
Right.
So even with a shot like that, I can't imagine what the raw, unless of course you filmed it, but the raw media must have been.
Yeah, it's massive.
It's massive.
Right.
6K files. I think we did a test when we were the first editor. Premiere was the first editor to read Red Dragon natively. We premiered that at IBC.
I remember that.
Yeah. It was a big deal. And I think at the time we had a couple of sample clips that Red shared with us, and I think now of course we have 8K, but yeah, for 13 seconds it was like 1.4 gigs or something like that, raw.
Yeah.
Yeah, that'd be a lot of gigs to get that 3 minutes.
A lot of hard drives.
Now, did you actually capture the entire vocal performance underwater like that?
We gave him sections of it, but when you see him under for the whole time, obviously it's
continuous.
That's real.
Right, it's real.
So that moment in the the breakdown in the song where we
Right.
let it go for like 20 seconds, where
Right.
it's just overlays in his face.
Right.
He's
under there.
He really did it.
That's crazy.
Yeah, his eyes were burning pretty bad because.
I bet. Yeah, no, because he's trying to keep them open.
Exactly.
Right. Yeah. Oh my God. So let's see. So Logan says, "Damn, you got a deep voice."
Okay, I'll take that.
Have you ever considered working as a voiceover artist?
Maybe I should. On the
Maybe
wrong
you should.
field.
So Jeanette is asking, just curious, how does the royalty thing work for this? Do you have to pay for playing that? You talking about here on the stream?
Oh, like on the Adobe thing?
On the Adobe thing? No. So these videos aren't monetized, but just like if you were to upload any commercial music to a video on YouTube, YouTube will sniff it out because it's commercially released, and then they'll handle the distribution of funds if a person were trying to monetize that, if that's what you're asking. So Logan's saying, yeah, the underwater shots were After Effects with a glass of water above the talent. Yeah, no.
Oh, no.
It's real.
Yeah, that's a bathtub and an overlay. Yeah.
Well, and like the hair, because I have to admit too, I'm watching it on Vivo and I'm looking and I'm
going. You can see the hair. You can see the bubbles coming out of his
bubbles
nose.
out of his nose.
Yeah.
I'm thinking, well, no, you could absolutely do it with After Effects, and there's certainly, I guarantee Andrew Kramer.
Oh,
could
absolutely.
Make that, but
yeah.
I'm looking at it going, this is like very intense VFX if this is what this is.
Right.
So
and it's not. Yeah.
Wow. Okay, so maybe we can go to your timeline now and.
Yeah, you want to get me back there?
Yeah.
Sorry,
Okay.
I never full screen any of this.
Oh,
I always
yeah.
use a second monitor.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, and that's we were talking about
I
this
was just
before.
going to say, teach me.
So the tilde key is to full screen any panel.
That's so funny.
And in Premiere, though, if you do Command tilde. I always Control tilde. I hate shortcuts. Control tilde. That is cinema mode. And what's significant about that is it's uninterrupted, right? So full screen as you're used to it.
Got it.
You still see, all the time code and everything else. Control tilde.
That's cool.
Cinema mode. So if
you know all of this, man. I was afraid I was going to look like a chump.
Oh no, get out of here.
Because I know you know Adobe inside and out.
Yeah, but you know what? There's always, and I'm horrible with shortcuts too. We were just talking about some before with Valentina. I'm like, I don't remember. I'm a menu person.
All right.
My mind kind of, I can do like 8 shortcuts max. So no, you'll whip me on shortcuts. So this is your timeline. I'm gonna grab my laptop while you're getting that set up.
All right, cool.
And my glasses.
Is there anything you want me to talk through, or questions that we already want to?
Yeah. So first one from Ren was, where did you get the idea of Dan singing underwater?
Yeah, that was an idea. That was my idea. Thanks, Ren, for asking.
Right.
Yeah. So the ideas that Dan and I had talked about before I got to New Zealand all involved Dan. It was more like, if you guys ever saw the Shots remix video where Dan is going through downtown Vegas dancing with people.
Right.
And he was going up to strangers and like giving them hugs and high fives.
Mm-hmm.
And it was kind of like Dan in a really great mood, making people happy.
Right.
And we talked about ideas like that.
Okay.
And when I got there and saw Dan and realized like, oh, this is really burned out, tired Dan that needs to go home to his actual house and get some sleep for a while.
Right.
And I thought like Dan is underwater, like he's all day long.
It's a metaphor for his life.
And it was like such an obvious metaphor. And so I just thought, I brought up the idea the first day. I said, let's shoot you performing the song underwater, because I feel like that's what you are going through right now. He's like, that's exactly how I feel.
That's awesome.
And he loved the idea.
He loved it. And he totally executed it flawlessly.
Yeah, like everything that he does.
Someone's asking, how many cuts did you do in this edit? They're like,
I know, it's a lot of cuts.
But mostly straight cuts, though, right?
Yeah, I think almost. In fact, I don't know if I dissolved
anything.
Anything? Yeah. Maybe the I can see like the very first.
The very first right.
shot has a dissolve. Let's see. Yeah.
I mean, there's a handful,
going back in, but
none.
yeah, it's all straight cuts. Straight cuts and overlays.
Straight cuts and overlays.
And white flashes, where I put like one frame of white.
One frame of white.
To just
That's right.
pop it.
A classic.
Yeah, it's an old trick.
Andrew's asking, what transition effect did you use to transition between those flash childhood videos? Yeah, so it's just a frame of white, right?
Yeah, that's usually what I do, and then
and that's you can access
this is
via
stuff
dip to white.
This was stuff that I got off of the actual home video footage too. And I would use little moments to just flash it, just to remind people.
Yeah.
Like,
so that's real VHS noise snow.
Exactly.
Yeah,
That they shot on an older camera while Dan was a kid.
Right.
That's Dan's brother Mac, I think, who manages the band.
Oh, that's
so
funny. He looks kind of a lot like.
Yeah, they all have a pretty similar look. But yeah, so the effects were mostly white flashes and then like actual camera blips that I pulled out of.
Mm-hmm.
And then I tried to make a title that looked like an old.
That looked like the old titlers that you'd have,
exactly.
or the display of the time code on the videotape.
Right, so that you could do it like in camera.
That's right.
Yeah, I actually, if there had been more time, I would have tried to actually do that.
Right.
Like find an old camcorder.
It's been so cool.
Yeah.
But you sell it anyway. It sells it. It looks. I mean, anyone who remembers VHS, that's it. And I love that. Like, what's interesting? Yeah, someone's. These open eyes saying, there's damaged TV transitions.
Right.
Boris Effects, Rampant has a bunch.
Mm-hmm.
That studio had a bunch too. These are right from the source.
These are just off of old tapes. Yeah.
So that's actually a question too, because Natasha's asking, what justifies a dissolve in your opinion? Good question. Because again, you're using a lot. You're barely using any.
It's true.
And this song, while it has a punctuated beat, it's not like
it's
Believer.
It's not Believer. It's not like
where you
this huge song.
Right, very epic. Yeah.
One thing about this is that there are a lot of cuts in this video. I don't even know if this is something I should say, but like when I did my cut, the song was a little different.
Okay.
And then I did my edit, and then they said, "Okay, we have a new master," because this was one of those videos where I think the song and video premiered on the same day.
Like on the same day. Oh, okay. Yeah.
And so I was given a second master, where beats were kind of pulled back because the beats were really punctuated
on the
original cut that I did. And so on some of these moments, like right there where it's doing that, you can kind of hear that rapid machine gun fire.
Yeah.
Like right there, you can hear that. That was really loud when I did my first cut. And I thought, I need to put cuts on all of that because it sounded like a machine gun.
Like a machine gun, right.
Right.
Oh.
And so when those got pulled back, I actually pulled out quite a few edits because there were even more edits to the other song, to the other version of the song.
Interesting.
So,
want to point out too, and I'm guessing this is like a common technique because again, and we mentioned this again. I'm going to want to reemphasize shot in 6K because this was asked during Joe's session this morning and in Valentina's too. shot in 6K but delivered in 1080,
Right.
you're creating that letterboxing, that
Oh, yeah,
CinemaScope
that's right.
look with just black bars.
Yeah,
black video.
I mean, it's just such like a
yeah.
old-fashioned trick. I'm sure, if I were just cutting on a timeline where I scaled it to that size, I'd get the same effect if I exported it. I don't know. For me, I just like knowing this is the 1080p frame.
Right. God, that's such a beautiful shot, and that's Sony's.
Yeah, so that was the Sony A7S II, and we thought about doing this shot with the Red Dragon, and worried about the low light. And so the A7S II was a brand new camera when we did this.
And that's its specialty, right?
Right.
So among others, but yeah, low light sensitivity is really amazing.
So after I saw Dan for the first day, we actually went out for a whole day where like Dan got on buses, and Dan was trying to interact with people.
Trying to get into it?
And trying to kind of like get into it, and he was just so tired, and he was so worn out. If I can find this.
Yeah.
Sorry,
No, go ahead and search away.
I wasn't expecting to pull up some of these older stills. Oh, these are like Dan growing up stills.
Oh, nice. Oh, that's hilarious.
These are all pictures that I had to line up. Like I'd line up his eyes and all these pictures.
Oh, right, that in that one section, right? Yeah.
So those are all pictures where.
Oh, wow, look at that one.
Yeah, I know, right?
Like prom picture or something.
Yeah, exactly.
And Pleximon Music, I would also agree. If you overuse the white flash,
oh yeah,
people do get kind of annoyed.
Yep, I agree.
I did that on a promo video for a client years ago, and I don't know why, but I saved them till the end. There was a part of the music where at the end it was sort of, it was like 4 to the floor. So I 4'd to the floor about 12 times, and it's up on Vimeo. And I mean, people were not.
Too flashy.
They were not kind. Yeah, that was like the nicest of them. Too flashy. Also, you suck.
Yeah, no, yeah, those happen too. You got to be ready for that.
Jons Mars says, is the fake letterbox, it's based on the industry standard spec and dimensions, or is it totally artistic size dimensions?
I usually just go for what I think looks cool.
It's visual, right?
Ty, my DP, always either tapes off a monitor, or he'll show, he has like guidelines.
Right.
That are usually like a 235.
Mm-hmm. Okay, yeah.
Which is kind of a cinema standard.
Yep, cinema standard, yep. Okay.
Yeah.
But you didn't measure it per se.
No, I mean, I probably put it
you probably do
almost
it enough
exactly
so that
back.
Right,
exactly.
Right.
Yeah, and I also know Ty's framing at this point, and so I know kind of where he's cutting it off.
Because you mentioned yesterday, he is shooting with his viewfinder.
So he has the guidelines.
He has the guidelines as
so
he's shooting.
So he's always taking that into consideration.
Yeah.
Whereas when I watch it, I always want to see the empty space because I want to know where I can kind of push and pull.
Right.
When I'm shooting 6K, I always want to use that.
How did you find shooting in that format, especially when it was so new? I mean, and even then, even 2 years ago, media management was a little rough.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, and when your crew is 2 people and you need to back up cards and you're using a laptop and like a Jeep.
Right. So someone asked, what was the duration of like the shooting and just the production time?
So I was in New Zealand for I think 5 days. My first day, because the band was in Australia still.
Okay.
Because they had to do like 3 shows in Australia while I'm still talking to Dan from New Zealand.
Right.
So I got to New Zealand a couple days early, talked to that production house.
Okay.
They basically took us on a scout of the island and said, what do you guys want to see? I was obviously in communication with Dan and the band about what he wanted to see too. Right. But yeah, they drove us all these cool locations, and that was up in Auckland.
Okay. Yeah.
Where they had a concert, and then they had a concert in Christchurch, which was an hour airplane ride.
Right.
And so we scouted Auckland for a couple days, not a couple days, probably a day.
A day, yeah.
And then the next day the band lands. They have their show in Auckland. I watch Dan on stage. He gets up, delivers like the perfect performance, like he always does.
Yeah.
Gets off stage, and I can tell like he's out of gas.
He's done.
And so I thought we need to show that. So we didn't shoot that first show. We were just there to meet up with Dan and talk ideas in the green room. I mean, he was out of gas. Yeah. He just wanted to go home or go back to the hotel and sleep. Right. And we saw the whole process of them riding in the van in silence because they're just tired.
Right.
It's not like they hate each other.
No.
They're just tired.
It's just 300 days on the road.
Right.
Doing your show. Right. You just want to go to bed.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, I've seen bands that don't get along before, and Imagine Dragons has never been that band.
Right.
Like, these guys are like brothers. Like, they get along great.
Right.
And so So yeah, I just thought we need to start the video showing that.
Right.
I want people to see that Dan on stage is like this big, larger than life person.
Right.
And then as soon as he gets off stage, you realize he used every
window.
ounce of energy he still has on the stage.
Right.
And then he has nothing left.
He has nothing left. Yeah.
So I thought, let's make the video about that.
And it's strong, and you feel that. And that was
Yeah.
actually one of the questions I was going to sort of start with, too. The fact that you have kind of that segue color, black and white.
Right.
Like those scenes, particularly in the van, driving away from
Yeah.
the gig, starting underwater in black and white, it feels that way.
Yeah.
I can't even describe
You want it to
why.
feel heavy.
Right, and
Right.
it does. I mean, and the silence.
Right.
I don't even know if that was added sort of Foley of the sound just in and around the van, or that's the actual natural
No, that
sound.
was all nat sound. Yeah, that was
awesome.
like camera audio with like a Sennheiser mic
No, I love
on the
it.
A7S.
That's
Yeah.
what I was hoping that's what you'd say, right?
Yeah.
So it's not like
No, we're not doctoring any
You're
of
not
that.
doctoring it.
And the
That's-
guys didn't talk in the van.
right.
I mean, they were
For
tired.
as long as you were
And then they
filming,
got in the elevator, and I think Platzman or like Wayne is holding a pizza, and I think they get to one of their floors, and I think one of them maybe said, "Good night, guys,"
Right.
and that was kind of it.
And that was it.
And I mean, they don't have to talk; they all know what they feel. They've been a band long enough.
Yeah, sure.
And so I know that some of the complaints that I got when the video first came out were the intro is too long,
Right.
and I get it.
Yeah.
Like it was almost 60 seconds.
Is it actually that long?
It is
Oh, okay.
of this underwater and then building up.
Right.
But I wanted that heavy feeling
Right.
to exist.
It
And so
translates.
I get, maybe it shouldn't have been that long, maybe, but that's what I was going for.
Well, you can look at the view count on Vivo. And
Okay.
You can feel good.
Well,
about it.
I always blame the song.
That's right,
When
yeah,
it gets
right,
a lot
that's
of
right.
counts, that's not me. That's the song.
Yeah, well, hey,
that's the song.
it's a combo, I think. So, just real quick, people are asking, are third-party plugins acceptable for the contest? And the short answer is yes, they are. So you can use any app in Creative Cloud, so Premiere, After Effects, Photoshop, Illustrator, you can only use the footage that we provide. So, for instance, we provide Adobe stock content. You can't download additional Adobe stock content and add that to your edit, to your cut. You can only use the footage that's supplied. But this is where you can get creative in After Effects and Photoshop, to sort of fill in the gaps. And there's a lot of footage there. I think we ended up with approximately 30 to 40 minutes total of footage, including.
That's cool.
Yeah, and if you haven't seen it, there's footage of each individual band member. There's several clips of Dan singing, again, in Believer, from different performances. So there's the very tight shot of his mouth. There's one of him sort of on the backlit stage. There's one of him in the spinning chair. And those are continuous. You actually have the entire performance of those for the
Right.
duration of the song. And then the band performances, drum, bass, and guitar, are kind of sporadic, cut throughout.
I think they got 3 performances each.
Yeah, something like
Yeah.
that. And then there are dozens of shots that are just beautifully graded, beautifully retimed of the fight scenes with Dan and Dolph.
Cool.
Those are phenomenal. But yes, third-party plugins are legit. Get creative. Make the cut. # Premiere Pro 25. Okay. So with this bicycle, yep, this is good. So now we were talking about copying cards and a nightmare with having your
Right.
massive crew of 2.
Exactly.
How do you manage footage like that? How do you...
So we try to take as many cards with us. I mean, we didn't bring them with us, but
Sure.
But in this case, we try to have as many cards on set that we know we can shoot a whole day.
Right.
That we never have to actually back
Delete,
anything
right.
up
Oh, okay.
until we
Yeah.
get to the hotel.
Okay.
Now, I don't like having a card of shot media that isn't backed up. So whenever it's possible, I mean, I'm sure we backed up footage in the Jeep on a laptop while we were driving from location to location during the day, just for my peace of mind.
Sure.
So that I know, okay, it's on the card and it's now on this hard drive.
Because this was the only chance. I mean, this
Right.
was again, you're sort of like, this is the duration, this is what's happening.
Right.
Capture it now, or
Exactly.
it doesn't
We
get
have
used.
to
Right.
just make it work.
You have to make it work.
Right.
Okay. Yeah.
And so yeah, I mean, it was just very old school. There was no like DIT or anything. But yeah, so when we get back to the hotel that night, I usually put on 3 hard drives. So I'll have the drive that we usually filled during the day, or hopefully filled during the day.
Right.
And then we'd back it up onto at least 2 other drives.
Smart.
We'd keep one with us. We'd leave one in the hotel.
Right.
And then the DP would usually take one too, so that I have one in my bag, one in his bag, so that if I get robbed, we
Right.
still have his copy and the one in the
Right.
hotel.
Yeah.
Because
and this is no joke. I mean,
no,
yeah.
it's not a joke.
Yeah, yeah. You really have to have these kind of fail safes because stuff happens, and when
Right.
you're, and you can speak to this, I'm sure directly, but even us when we used to tour around, me and Michael and Rufus, and we're carrying laptops and bags and gear and all this stuff. Yeah, you're kind of
You're vulnerable.
You're vulnerable, right?
Right.
And you're kind of walking around loosely on the beach with this,
Or in like a sketchy neighborhood with a really nice camera.
with a $75,000 camera, just
Right.
the body, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so the thing is like the camera is always going to be insured. Like if the camera drops or gets stolen, the camera's insured.
Mm-hmm.
The shot media, if you
Right.
lose that,
Yeah. No, it's over.
it's a bigger loss.
Right. It's a way bigger loss because you can't replace it.
Right.
Yeah.
So at some point, the footage actually becomes more valuable than the gear when you're on the road.
Tosh is asking, this is a great question. Does your perspective change when you're just the editor and not there during the film?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, I
Are you
always
typically
say.
always on set for these things? I mean,
When I direct, I edit.
Okay.
Like I never hand my footage to anybody. I think
Okay,
I'm too much
okay.
of a control freak.
Okay.
But I'm also handed other people's footage all the time to cut
Right,
that I
sure.
didn't direct or I wasn't
right.
there.
Weren't there, and
I mean, I always, either way, I'll give it my all. But like
Right.
the feel of the shoot will translate into the edit
Right.
if I was there.
if you were there, sure.
Like I know what Dan was saying when the camera wasn't rolling.
Right.
And that will influence the way that I'll
Influence
cut
how you'll
something.
cut it. No,
Yeah.
that makes a lot of sense. Awesome. Okay. So, and maybe we should start getting into some of the cuts too. One other
Sure.
thing that I wanted to ask, because this speaks to something now, we're talking about 6K raw native media being sort of produced and cut in a 1080 timeline.
Right.
You got a lot of VHS,
Yeah.
PAL.
Right.
Or I guess it's NTSC.
No, it's NTSC.
It's NTSC, of course. Duh.
Right.
I'm thinking.
Oh, you
New
were
Zealand.
thinking New Zealand.
I know.
Yeah.
Sorry. So NTSC, what is it? 640 by 480 square.
Yeah, I think it was something like that.
Something
or-
like that. Okay.
yeah.
So again, that's 640 pixels by 480 pixels, right?
Right.
We have to scale it up to 1920 1080. Some of it you letterbox, some of it you kept 4:3. So
Right.
what process did you do to kind of make that even viewable? Because I know I've tried some VHS stuff. Let me rephrase that. I've tried to take old VHS. This just really dates me entirely. Of my childhood and
Right.
transfer those over, and and there's all sorts of boxes. Blackmagic makes some of those, so you can do composite video, and yeah, I mean, not surprisingly, you look at something shot on that format on any modern 27-inch monitor, let alone a 50-inch television.
Right.
It's unwatchable.
Yeah, it's beat up.
It's beat up. I mean, it's just unwatchable. There just aren't enough pixels to fill detail. So it just kind of is soft and snowy and
Right.
RGB-E, right? There's just all these color
I know what you
bars
mean.
blinking and noise. So how did you do it? Because, yes, it feels, and it's obviously authentic, but like, and I'm guessing based on some of the things you said yesterday with neat noise reduction, maybe some of that was used, but these shots look super clean.
Yeah. I mean, obviously, Dan's probably at least 10 years younger than us. So it's 10 years
Right.
better technology.
Okay, oh, right, okay.
So as messy as,
these are like
some
DV
of this,
cam?
it was probably closer to like a DV cam.
DV cam, okay.
Than like a VHS
So
tape.
720, 480 then at least. Yeah.
Because this is Dan as a baby.
Yeah.
And here's the original shot right here. And that's not too bad.
Yeah.
I mean, you see some degradation.
Right, along, which was
at the bottom
typical
there.
of
yeah.
the format at the time. And a little bit on the
and even like
on
the
the
blip
left side
between the cut.
Yeah.
Like all of this is raw footage.
Right.
So I mean
so great.
that's real. Going from one to the other. Now I think that's Mac, Dan's big brother.
That's his brother. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, but I actually wanted it to look beat up, and so some of it came in a little cleaner than I expected, and I didn't try to go out of my way to date Dan or
Right,
make it look
no,
older than
right.
it needed to look.
Right.
But I also didn't clean it up.
Wow.
I cleaned up a lot of our Red Dragon footage, but not
Interesting.
the home video.
And I guess and it's funny. So because as I'm saying, wow, it just looks so clean. You must have noise reduced. And yet, still, right, it has this completely authentic. I mean,
Right.
we see a lot today where people try and recreate a film
Right.
look with too many scratches and
I know
too
what you
much
mean.
noise.
I'm guilty of that
Yeah, I'm
sometimes.
guilty of it too. I mean, I
Yeah.
love it, actually.
Me too.
But, and this look, as someone was mentioning, right, there's so many ways that you can give it that soft, videotape,
right?
kind of, or early digital
Like
tape.
pull the saturation,
right,
or boost it.
or
sometimes.
boost it, right?
Yeah.
So the colors are just everything's blown out, you know?
Right.
There's never any shadow detail, right?
Exactly, right.
No shadow
it's
details.
on or it's off.
It's on or
Yeah.
it's off, right? And but these really, they work. And again, I think part of it too is when you add the letterboxing to it, it somehow it just glues it together with everything. So it's
Right.
old, it's authentic, but yet it feels, yeah. There's just something really cool about seeing it that way. And did you use any kind of upscaling? Did you?
No, this is all just
scaled in timeline?
Yep. I mean, it's like right here. It's 309%.
Are you hearing this?
Did I do anything? It looks like
Megan?
you know my color. Let's see if I did anything with color. I don't think I did. Honestly. Oh,
Yeah.
where am I?
Oh, just go into your color
Workspaces.
workspace.
Yeah, right here.
Yeah.
I don't see a whole lot going on. No, that's blank.
Nothing.
Yeah.
Wow.
And so that is straight footage, scaled up to 309%, and then it looks like I just kind of like positioned
to
in kind of where I
reposition it,
wanted it.
right.
Yeah.
So that's really interesting too, because again, you didn't even go to something like, I mean, I said this yesterday. My first stop would have been After Effects detail preserving upscale.
Right.
Even though there's not much detail
No,
in
there's
these
not.
videos.
Yeah.
Just because this is a 300% in sequence scale.
Just to get it to 1080.
Just to get it
not
to 1080.
6K.
Right, just to get it to
Yeah.
1080. Right, yeah,
Right.
forget 6K.
Exactly.
Right, yeah.
Exactly.
Not I don't know that there's a scaling algorithm that's even that good, but perhaps. But that's amazing. Like I can honestly tell you, I don't think I've ever pushed in Premiere just a single clip on the timeline. Yeah, okay, 200%.
Right. 300 is really, really
I
stretching.
definitely haven't done that, and that's sourcing it with DSLR.
Right.
Something that's probably already 720 at a minimum. right?
Exactly.
It wasn't dealing with DV. So
Like 7D slow-mo footage.
yeah,
or
right,
something.
right.
Yeah.
Dude, shocking and awesome.
Cool.
Yeah.
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 I mean, I like, I want it to look beat
Daniel
up.
agrees.
All right,
All right,
cool.
greetings from UK.
This was a Red Dragon,
Yep.
not an Alexa on
Yep.
this one. Believer was an Alexa.
Pavel's asking how much percent. Oh, okay, yeah, you just saw it, Pavel. Yeah, so 360%. Crazy, and then again, just using the black bars to simulate the letterboxing.
Yep. And then export settings, standard 1920 by 1080. ProRes 422 HQ is what Vivo
Oh, right.
asked for on their delivery specs.
Interesting, okay.
So, 422 HQ.
Right.
Yeah.
Very nice. Okay, that's good to know, actually. Because, again, as you were sort of saying yesterday, and actually it was brought up this morning, too, I mean, outside of YouTube, even though, of course, YouTube supports 4K, but someone like Vivo, I mean, they're still requesting 1080 masters.
Right. I mean, it's just all they need.
That's all they need, right?
Yeah. And people are just going to watch it on a phone anyway.
Right. And,
So-
and it's about consumption. You want to be able to play it
Exactly.
anywhere, on anything, and yeah, it makes so much sense. Let's see. Brian saying, oh yes, you could try Red Giant's instant 4K to do upres. Yeah, I mean, there's many options out there. Daniel saying, yeah, scaled and timeline,
Oh, he's
amazing.
asking, which is better, Alexa
Oh.
or Red? I'll take the Alexa over the Red any day.
Mm-hmm.
I like shooting those ProRes files
Right.
out of the camera.
Right. That
Because-
seems to be a fairly common. I mean, I know people love Red too, but
And I get it. And
Right.
I also see there are pros and cons to both.
Sure.
With the Red, you can get a bigger image,
right,
but I edit,
right,
and so I want the ProRes files.
right,
And so
right away,
Exactly.
no delay.
And so
Right.
that's honestly what it is.
that kind of does it right there.
It looks a little cleaner too out of the camera. The
Mhm.
Red, you kind of have to clean it up a
Yeah,
little
you're
more.
right. You have to take advantage of their RMDs.
Exactly.
Really, interesting.
And it's more complicated. So.
Okay.
But
Dude,
that's me. There's no right or wrong, guys.
Right.
Like whatever camera,
and whatever works. Whatever works
exactly.
for the client too.
The best camera is the one you have.
That's right.
Yeah.
Duke Maverick is saying low def is making a comeback. I mean, yeah, absolutely.
It really is.
I for one, talking about sort of like noise and audio. So working on this collaboration record where in almost every track we're pushing. So I do a lot of analog mastering still, reel to reel.
Cool.
Often bounce finished Pro Tools or Audition Master to reel at 15
Oh, cool.
IPS.
To give it the
Tape crunch, little
taste.
tape compression,
Yeah.
and then bounce it back into Audition at 96K.
That's
and
cool.
it just, it thumps and it
You
pumps.
add that air to it.
Totally.
Yeah, that's
It
awesome.
has this absolute essence of air that you perceive.
Yeah.
You know? And tape really does that. And this record, we crunched and compressed, and I mean tape compressed, just about every track from every song. so that it had some kind of either slight overmodulation or slight distortion.
That's a cool idea.
Yeah, well, and
it ties it all together.
It does, and in a time where music in particular, and we were talking about this too about delivering on YouTube, how it has to be mastered hot. I mean, that's just how it is.
Mm-hmm.
If you try and take advantage of sort of dynamic range, which is wonderful and artistic, you lose people.
Right.
Right. They watch Believer.
Yeah.
Believer, and then they go to my song, and it's they're
right.
just done.
Yeah.
They'll never get past it. They'll never get it 3 seconds in.
You got to punch it.
You got to punch it. So, but in this case, so we're using actual analog noise and distortion, and then digitally punching it.
Exactly.
It's very loud. It is just to look at the waveforms. They're all just bricks.
Yeah.
It's just bricks. There's no dynamic range whatsoever. Right. Whispers are as loud as screaming. That's
exactly.
All right, cool. So let's see here. A lot of questions about the contest. Oh, so John Z Movies is asking, do you ever archive your project with the project manager in here?
Do I ever archive it that way?
Mm-hmm.
No, I don't.
Okay.
Yeah.
Have you ever used the project manager?
Not really.
Okay.
You guys should teach me.
You want to see the project manager?
Actually, yeah, I'd love to see that.
So this was actually, and thank you, John. That's a great question. So this was redesigned. I want to say in 2016. Consolidate and Transcode 2016, 2015. Okay, so probably right around when this was happening, give or take. I think it happened in the.
It might have been spring of 2016.
Could have been spring.
I was prepping it before I left.
Right. Okay. So somewhere in that time frame. And what's cool about this is that, first of all, you have the ability to simply collect files and copy to a new location. So as you know,
that's awesome.
Sometimes you just want to take it off there, put it over here, package it all up with everything that's in there. Because you might be pulling stuff from 2, 3, 8 drives.
Yep.
So this collects it all.
Yeah.
What was new and what was awesome and what they did really, really well was consolidate and transcode. So you can choose, sequence, individual clips, or a preset. You choose your format. So DNX.
I remember doing this a lot.
Yeah.
There was a Final Cut. I don't even remember what it was called.
Right.
But I did that a lot.
Yeah.
With that, but it's kind of it gets rid of the media that you don't use sometimes.
Right.
Yeah.
And there's options for that. So you see right here, you can exclude unused clips or
great.
keep them. You can include handles. This there were 2 major additions. So convert image sequences to clips was huge. Also convert After Effects comps to clips. So where you might have dynamically linked media, actually render it out as a specific clip because you're archiving. So to deal with kind of the machine stress of dealing with dynamic links, it kind of takes it away.
I like that it shows the potential size,
so
the calculation.
It can even do the calculate. We won't perform this here, but
this is cool. Thanks.
It's good.
Good question.
It's really good. And
I was hoping, there would be more moments like this where I'm the one learning because there's a lot I need to learn about Premiere as much as I use it.
So you can see right here. So 700 gigs is the original.
Yeah.
Just excluding what's not used in that timeline, 141.
Yeah, that's amazing.
So that's great. I mean, and for which you have 98 gigs available. So
of course,
that drive will
just
not work.
Maxing out that drive. I don't like to go under 100 gigs.
I know.
I'm close.
And by the way, that is a best practice too. You ultimately want half of the available space, total space on a drive for best read.
It's like breathing.
Yeah. I mean, and I admit I get down to about 250 and I start to get nervous.
Right.
Below 100, not
you're
really.
pushing it.
You're pushing it because there's just too much. Asynchronous access is just too much for the drive, especially if it's spinning. If it's SSD, maybe you have a little more latitude, but spinning drives.
Yeah, and this one's not SSD.
Right.
So,
No. Yeah. Can we use custom LUTs, fly iron? Yes, you can. And in the Lumetri panel,
they're probably referring to the Believer video stuff, right?
Oh, right. Could be. Yeah.
Using the custom LUTs.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure you can definitely use custom LUTs on the edit, right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
For
Absolutely.
the Believer edit.
Yeah. So color correction again. Color correction. Effects. Someone was asking if they can only use the overlays that we provided as footage overlays. Yes. That being said, we discussed this yesterday too. In After Effects, we even have preset projects where you can create fog and smoke, kind of simulate light rays and things like that. Those kinds of things, it's part of it. You're creating it in After Effects. Graphical elements, you can create those too. Just no additional footage. That's the key. And you have to submit the Premiere Pro project, so it's not like you can kind of mask it somehow.
People will see it.
People will see it and they go, oh,
okay,
this
that
is,
makes sense.
you know, beautiful fog in San Francisco _pond5_.mov. You know, that's
right. But that makes sense
right.
because if you send the project, if it doesn't reconnect, it's going to be obvious right away that you used other stuff.
Yeah, yeah.
So
that's a big thing. But yeah, plugins are okay. Third-party LUTs are okay, and you can import those directly right from within the Creative tab inside of the Lumetri Color panel. And that's it, yeah. Duke Maverick, I shift-delete all my footage. That doesn't make the cut. Nice. So Stefan is asking, did you do much color grading or correction with the higher res footage, thinking about the rugby shots, the fishing shots?
Yeah, definitely.
Mm-hmm. And these are the masters, so we can actually see the grades that were applied.
Yeah, I think this was either the last timeline I worked off of or like second or third
close
to last.
To it,
but it's really close. So whenever I use Neat Video, which is software that will remove noise.
Right.
Because it's kind of a heavy render, after I use Neat Video, I'll always export the clip and then drag it back in with a name.
Nice.
So I really loved this shot of Dan right here, leaning up against this like, you know, brick alley wall right here. We were actually like kind of up underneath like this old castle-looking thing. The original shot, because we shot it at like 6:30 right after the sun went down. There's my original shot.
Wow.
So
that's the pre-treated, pre-color correct,
Yes,
anything.
that's with
raw.
it.
Right.
In fact, you know what? That's with the exposure boosted.
Wow, and
the
highlights boosted.
Let's put it back to normal. So
Yeah.
it was there. There it was right there. And so I took that shot and just cranked it to make Dan visible again. In fact, why? I must have to. Oh, it's deactivated. That's why.
Okay, there you go.
Okay, that makes more sense. Let me just back up in time a little bit. Okay, so I boosted that. Why am I seeing nothing change?
Oh, it's a delay. It's just a delay.
Oh, it's just a delay. Okay, so anyway, you can see I really, really pushed
Yeah.
it, and you know, and if we want to really get in and look at it, the shot got really ugly and grainy, as you can see.
Yeah.
It's like there's Dan's face, and so I took that shot because I wanted to use it because again, that was the original. You know, this is what I was going for, but it was too grainy.
Right.
And then I added the Neat Video filter and cleaned it up.
Wow.
So that now, I mean, obviously, like Neat Video, it's got its pros and cons.
Right.
It's mostly pros.
Right.
But you can see it makes things a little glassy.
Right, a little glassy, but
worth it. Because
so
I would
worth
take this glassy look over the super grainy look.
right.
Any
And
day.
I mean, like the skin tone, it looks natural. It doesn't
Right.
look like you pulled out all the green channel and
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah,
Right,
it doesn't
so now-
look super distorted.
Right, it's all distorted and the skin tone's all wrong. You know?
But yeah, I mean, so if we start with what we did originally and what we did here, so we've got, you know, kind of the before and the after.
Oh, that's
There
amazing.
were definitely things that we needed to do to kind of Frankenstein the footage to make it work.
Right.
So
And Andres was asking if you had used proxies, but we didn't have proxies when you cut this, so you didn't use any proxies.
no, it didn't
Yeah.
exist yet.
Yeah,
I
right.
think it came out. That came out a couple months ago, right? The proxies.
Yeah,
it was like 3 or 4 months
year ago?
Was it that long
Last
ago?
spring, yeah.
I was
about a year.
I was late to the party.
I never remember.
I need to watch more Adobe tutorials.
Oh, dude,
Yeah.
you know, we were saying it's just so many updates happen so often.
It's
kind
true.
It's hard to remember when they can. But anyway, it's new-ish. So
Okay, really new to me.
Yeah,
by the way.
right.
Yeah.
And we actually worked through some things.
Yeah,
today,
you
which
were
really
showing
good.
me some stuff.
So
That's
it's
really
cool.
cool.
Kasude is saying, "Wow, that color correction was insane." I
Yeah.
mean, yeah. And again, and it's interesting, right? Because, and of course actually, is that the original R3D clip?
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's what this is over here.
So if we go into the source settings, we can actually probably see sort of the
Oh,
original
exactly.
exposure and stuff. Because what's interesting with that is
You know, I mean, like, check out the scopes.
Right.
Like, there was nothing there.
there's nothing there. But what's really interesting is you assume you're shooting Red Dragon 6K, and you're just like, well, yes, of course, in darkness, if you crank exposure, there will be noise. But
Right.
I have to say I didn't honestly expect that amount of noise. I was guessing it was going to be noisy. That was a bit.
And I
that was
didn't
a
boost.
lot.
I didn't boost too much ISO, obviously.
Right, I see. You're at
I mean, the ISO is going to add a
Sure.
kind of a different kind of noise.
Right, absolutely.
yeah, that's kind of where it was.
Those are your original settings. Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean.
But yeah, I mean, it was flatlining right here. We had to revive it.
Right.
So.
Again, yeah, just like, and that's it. Like, there's no shadow detail at all.
Yeah.
There's no depth
Like, I couldn't
at all.
believe we were able to pull that much
Right.
back.
No, that's what I mean. Off his shoulder and everything.
Like, that his jacket came
right.
back. And,
yeah.
yeah, it's cool. I was really happy about that.
I almost thought it was a Thriller jacket for a second there.
Yeah, that's when I saw him get off stage and put that on, I thought the same thing. That's a cool jacket.
Dude, that's hilarious.
But yeah, this actual example right here is when I'm telling people about Neat Video,
right.
I have screen grabs of the before and the after here, and I say this is why I always Neat Video is really the only plugin I use, and maybe I need to show up to the plugin party someday, but like that's why I use Neat Video. It's like Neat Video and Premiere.
Right. Because you can just do amazing things with it. And it's consistently gotten like more impressive. Actually, Valentina was showing it just before you. Yeah. She was using it.
Yeah, it's awesome.
It's awesome. And now that you can even expand the radius of frame samples and things, I mean, it's just
so
very
cool.
easily. Yeah, it's so
Get really
cool
specific.
Really specific and really an enormous amount of control.
Why didn't I bring lights? Because we didn't have room in the Jeep.
Right. That's just
I
being
wish
honest.
we had them.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
I had like
LED
battery powered lights.
Battery-powered
it was
LED.
the end of the day, and there really wasn't any, and we had to hike up a hill to do this shot.
I was saying this is obviously outside. So
oh yeah, this is outdoors. We're kind of in this little alley thing. There would have been no plugs for lights anyway.
Sure. Yeah, you would have had to
and
have
we just
some
didn't have the
generator.
manpower, and our light was fading by the second.
Right.
Because we went up the hill to get a different shot,
Right.
and then I saw this and said, "Let's
Oh.
put Dan in here and get him here too." It was either me or Ty.
Right.
One of us saw this and said, "Let's put him in here," and really there was just no time and no manpower.
And when that was done, it was probably now it's too dark. We're wrapping for the day.
But yeah, I wish I had lights.
So Pavel's asking, in Believer, did you want to convey the idea of the old retro game systems? Was this the main motif for the video?
I mean, for Believer, yeah, I mean, the word video game was brought up, but I also didn't want it to feel too video gamey because they had just done their Nintendo commercial,
Right.
and I didn't want the Believer video
Like
to
associated
feel
with-
like it was tied in or like Nintendo was involved, because they weren't. And so, yeah, I mean, Mike Tyson's Punch Out went through my head a few times,
Right.
but like
Right.
but yeah, I wasn't. I didn't want to fully go that route because of the Nintendo ad.
Right. And I think that was
Yeah.
smart too, because actually now looking at it outside of that, they don't connect.
Yeah.
If you don't already know.
Okay.
Right. So no.
Cool.
Brilliantly
Good
achieved.
question though.
Mauricio is asking, how long does it take to edit something like this? How long versus how much time do you have?
Yeah, I mean,
allotted
and
to
how
it?
much time do I wish I had?
Right.
I think I had about 7 days on this one after I got back from New Zealand, and I probably slept a total of like 10 hours in those 7 days because I was just on this constantly.
Right.
Because when I landed, the first thing I needed to do besides start going through my R3D files and the Sony files was call Dan's mom in Vegas and say, "Hey, I've got this idea where I want to bring in a bunch of home video clips, and I hope you have some.
Right.
Will you please go through them and overnight them to my house?" So she basically just went through boxes of tapes, and some of them were old family home videos that they had burned to DVDs.
Oh, right.
So she sent some that were like burned to DVD that I had to rip the DVD, which is even worse than pulling it from a tape sometimes.
And it worse if for no other reason than the time involved.
That's
in
what I
doing it.
mean.
Right, yeah.
And time was, obviously there wasn't a lot of time.
Limited, yeah.
But yeah, the reason I wanted the family home video footage was because New Zealand is like the opposite side of the world.
Right.
Dan hadn't been home for so long. I think he had to miss his daughter's birthday. Like that kind of stuff was going on.
Yeah.
On that same tour, Wayne missed a childbirth. It was rough.
Yeah,
Like these guys
it's
were
rough.
getting hammered.
Right.
And I liked this idea.
And not in the good way.
No, not in the rock star
not in
way.
the rock
I'm
star
saying
way.
like, they
It's
were
like,
tired
they're
and they
just
were beat
tired
up.
and
Yeah. And I wanted it to be, that even Dan on the other side of the planet could find his roots and feel at home in certain ways while he was out and about, which is why, we would flash from footage of him as a kid doing something kind of similar to the activities we were trying to do while we were in New Zealand, so that he could still find his roots even when he was so detached.
Right. And that kind of inspired like the rugby shots.
Exactly.
Just playful.
Yeah, because he played sports as a kid. He was never a rugby guy, obviously.
Right.
If you play rugby, you can tell Dan doesn't play rugby. but he's an athletic guy. The fishing, and we'd show shots with his dad.
Right, yeah.
So we tried to tie some of that in. It's all just buried messages. But
right. So then in terms of the time, like...
Yeah, I think, I sent my first rough cut probably 5 days after we got back.
Okay.
The band gave notes. I don't sleep because I'm waiting for the notes.
Right.
And so I get the notes back because they're of course still on the road.
Right.
Like
right.
I flew home.
Right. Tour's not over.
They're
right.
going. They're going somewhere else.
Somewhere in Southeast Asia or something like that.
Antarctica or something.
Right.
Yeah. Like
right.
who knows where they went after that. But yeah. So I mean, it's a tight turnaround.
Yeah.
And there are a lot of times when I'll watch a music video and my first thought is like, why did they do that?
Right.
But then I think, we never know the box that this person is in
right.
when they're making their video.
Right.
Like a lot of times, what looks like an obvious answer to a problem or to something that doesn't look quite right in a
right.
video, we don't know what was really behind it.
Right.
Like, oh, this guy only had an hour to cut the video,
right.
or, something about the footage was destroyed on set and he
right.
only had the backups,
right.
or
right.
something.
Right.
Like there's always more to the story.
There's always more to the story
than the
exactly.
final cut.
Absolutely.
And so, I mean, I'm not doing that to just defend myself, but just
yeah.
videos in general.
I
try to
right.
watch it. I watch everything critically because all editors watch other editors' work very critically. Right. But I also try to always remember, like, I don't know what the situation was
right.
when it all came down to
right.
it. So this one had a lot of different situations involved.
All right. Just a couple quick questions about the Make the Cut contest, which again you can register for makethecut.adobe.com. You've got until April 8th to submit your edit, your vision of the Believer video, originally directed and edited by Mr. Matt Eastin over here. And Kasude, you're asking, will the entries for the contest receive reviews from judges? Yes, so we have a panel of luminary judges, including members of the band, Matt himself, an Academy Award-winning director, several other video directors, some of our executives here at Adobe will be looking them over, so yes, and they will be watched in their entirety. So definitely get on that for your chance to win $25,000.
Cool.
Yeah, very cool. So Johnny PP, any tips for young filmmakers, like how to start making money and your thoughts on going to film school, college?
I mean, you need to learn somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
And so if it's college, that's great.
Right.
If it's watching tutorials because that's the only way you can learn, then
right.
do it. I feel like I went to a school where there was a good broadcast program, but there was no film program.
Okay.
And so I learned editing, and I
Right.
learned how to use cameras, but not film cameras necessarily.
Right.
I made the most with what I had
Right.
as my resource, and I think that's my best advice is just
I like that.
use what you have,
Right.
and if the camera you have is your iPhone, make videos with your iPhone and keep getting better.
And that, of course, and that's, I love that sort of, that comment, because that's evolved, gosh, in the last 3 to 5 years, let alone 10 to 15.
Right.
Right. I mean, because actually, not surprisingly now, since we seem to have some very bizarre similarities, but
Right.
it was the same for me. So I started in video. Someone mentioned U-matic tape. So yes, 3/4 inch U-mat tape was what I was editing on. Assembly style editing with Panasonic switchers.
Right.
Yeah, right. Used the first video toaster.
Oh,
remember,
wow.
for graphics generation.
Wow.
Circa.
That was legit.
That was legit. It was a big deal. A lot of bevels. A lot of gold, sparkly beveled text.
Right.
Again, I have font anxiety. I was the worst. But it's that same thing. And I learned how to shoot. One thing I will say I learned from the teachers, because they was all broadcast cameras shooting like news style things. Learned about how to really capture, sharpness in an image, zooming in and all these kinds of good techniques. But again, nothing to do with film, music video,
or cinema.
Right. And even the cutting, again, always straight cuts, never a jump cut,
right?
L cuts maybe, right? But
right,
yeah.
Right.
But I mean, it was sort of very broadcasty,
right?
It wouldn't play out anywhere else, and but as time moved on, right, early software,
it just kind of started merging. Honestly, the DSLRs are what really started merging worlds, I think, and making it easier for filmmakers to make something that looks really impressive with a low
Right.
budget.
And you mentioned it today. We were just talking about this, and you said, yeah, like you mentioned House. I
Yeah.
said, all right, House. That was like the first show where they broadcast, and it was the 5D.
Yeah, the TV
right?
show,
The TV
House
show.
MD.
Yeah, House MD, and they were using the 5D Mark II still at the time. I mean, this is already 6-7 years ago.
Right.
But it made it to broadcast television, where again, at some point, someone had
And
said,
looked great.
and looked great,
Yeah.
right? And was and that show was already kind of stylized and always vignetted and kind of,
Right.
yeah. So
Right.
it lent itself perfectly to that, you know. So let's see. Your first NLE was called a Stratosphere. It was awful. Brian. I don't remember that one.
I don't either. That's cool.
Kevin, by the mid '80s, college no longer used film cams. Oh yeah, no doubt. Yeah, I'm not totally embarrassed to say that I remember we got an upgrade to SVHS.
Ooh.
Remember that
Yeah,
short-lived
of course I do.
waste of time?
Super VHS.
Right.
Yeah.
I don't even remember what the benefit was. It did look a little better.
Right. It was almost like, do you remember when you'd buy a VHS tape and it had SP, LP,
Yes,
and EP?
EP, yes.
I think SVHS was like the even slower.
Right.
It was like slower than
Could
SP.
be,
Is that what
could
it
be.
was?
I think that was what it was.
Yeah.
And it did have there was some characteristics. It did look a little better. Maybe the sensor was a
Maybe.
little different, or
Yeah.
was there?
I don't know if
really
there was.
I don't even know. I don't know. I mean, it was really such a minimal bump in
Right.
quality, but they were so expensive. You know?
Right.
And of course, they weren't backwards compatible.
Oh, of course not.
Right. So,
Yeah.
so I still have a bunch of SVHS masters from high school days.
That's awesome.
That I can't do anything with.
No, yeah.
No.
They're like dinosaur eggs.
Good
Yeah.
luck finding a player. Someone was asking what would be the best or most cost-effective way, like, to transfer VHS or DV tape. Like, what did you use? Did you send that out to have the transfers done, or did you have some kind of?
I think I had. I did some of it myself, where I hooked up like an old DV drive.
Right.
I had a friend help
Okay.
because there were quite a few tapes.
Okay. Yeah.
And it wasn't just watching these, because some of them I would watch them first and decide if I even
If there
needed
was
to
even
capture
stuff,
them.
right,
Some
in
of them
there.
I'd watch it, and Dan and his brothers look so similar
Right.
that I would have to like take pictures of it with my phone. Hopefully Dan was
Right.
still awake, or maybe his
Right.
mom, and I'd say,
Is
"Is
this
this
you?"
you?"
Right.
Because I wanted the video to be pretty realistic. I didn't want to just cheat and use Dan's brothers.
Right. Right.
Like, so all the footage where it's Dan, or supposed to be Dan, really
It
is
is
him.
Dan.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, it was a process.
Yeah.
And it was just, hooking up RCA cables. And,
Right, a composite video, right?
Exactly.
Yeah, as good as it gets.
Right.
And someone was asking too. Now, did you send this out for color? Did you use speed grade?
No,
Or-
I mean that I wish
You're
there had been.
seeing
I
it,
wish there
right?
had been more time. But
Right.
yeah, I mean, like it
all
is
Lumetri.
all it is all right here. Yep,
right
it is
here.
all like that's all this shot got.
Yeah. So let's see
maybe
some
like
of these.
maybe like an S curve or something.
Yeah. See some of these like raw ones maybe.
And now obviously this
Perfect.
has like a little bit of a LUT
Yeah.
on it,
Yeah.
and so yeah. But I mean, it's all
And you did it.
very
That's
simple.
the-
Oh yeah, it was just yep. In fact, that's one of those moments where you can hear the beats.
Right.
They were more pronounced, but it did zoom in on those flowers
Right.
on the first rough cut.
Oh, interesting.
I see more questions about the underwater stuff.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know if I know we talked about it a little bit.
Yeah, we can go back
Like,
to
we
that.
can go back
'cause-
to kind of the first shot here.
Yeah.
So I neat videoed these shots too, but like you can see, this is Dan in a bathtub
So that's the raw shot. Okay, on the left.
in a hotel room.
And just to
Like
clarify too why it's so dark, so Matt is standing over Dan with
Mm-hmm.
the iPhone playing back the audio at 2.5x and holding a little LED light,
Yeah.
which you could just see the reflection of on
Yeah,
his
and
forehead.
I'm holding it right above his
Right
head
above his
so that
head.
it kind of top lit him a little bit, lit some of the water.
And it's really dark. I mean, it's
Yeah, it
it's
was really
largely
We wanted that to be the only source in the room. We didn't want like the
right,
bathroom lights on.
Right,
It would
sure,
have
it would have just too
looked terrible.
yeah, not pleasant, right?
Let me see. I thought I had maybe labeled one. But yeah, I mean, like, yep, there's Dan in a bathtub
Wow.
right there, which is really fun. And you can tell Dan's gotten in pretty good shape since then. He was in good shape then.
Yeah.
But then
Oh,
for the
yeah.
Believer video, he really bulked up.
No, that's what I was
Yeah.
gonna say. It's a different look now. Yeah.
Yeah, not to get too distracted
No, right.
by Dan with his shirt off or
It's
whatever.
like, please,
but-
more Dan in the bathtub.
Exactly.
shots, right?
But I just wanted to be clear, like we weren't faking that. That is Dan in a bathtub in New Zealand.
So what about, like, is someone saying, please, more color grades? What about something like this? This is the graded version, and this is the Sony
Yeah, it would be
camera.
minimal, and we have the unfortunate camera shadow that we just thought, you know what, it's documentary style. Let's own it.
It's okay. Yep.
Yep. So looks like nothing.
Nothing at all, right?
Just in camera LUT.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah, because we wanted this feel to be that when Dan was on stage, it was really the only time he was alive when he was on tour.
Right.
That this is Dan, in front of, this is in Christchurch. So this is actually the second night.
Okay.
So we did cheat it. This is the last thing we did.
Mm-hmm.
But we're showing it first because this did also happen every other night they were on the road.
And it was the night before when you got inspired.
And it was the same.
To
It was the same
right.
process where Dan goes backstage and like covers his head in a towel, and just
zones out.
just closes off.
Yeah.
And so this is Dan going off stage, and now the world turns black and white because yeah, he really did just shut off.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, if you talk to Dan today, he'd be the best interview you've ever had.
Right.
Friendliest guy, super charismatic, super
Right.
funny and charming and cool. But yeah, he was burned out on tour. And so I don't want to give the impression that Dan is like some closed off, rude rock star, because he's absolutely not.
No,
Yeah.
and you could, I mean, well, it's hard to imagine, but one could imagine, right, performing 300 nights
Yeah.
with, I mean, in front of that many people.
And doing the same songs.
And having to bring it.
Yeah.
Right? People are there, they want it, they want to hear it as they know it, they want to see it as they expect it, and you
Yeah.
got to be on. Otherwise, you're not doing that for very long, right?
And people think like, oh, he's this cool, famous rock star traveling to New Zealand. That's so awesome.
Right.
I mean, but you see him walking through like these cement tunnels backstage. So when he's in New Zealand, obviously like we took him out and about on that one day off to shoot a music video.
Right.
But like what you're seeing right here, these like boring cement walls with like, just backstage at a venue. Like this is the green room. Like this is where he's been living. It's not like
It's not glamorous.
he's going to fancy nightclubs at the end of concerts or
Right.
whatever. Like it's, it can get a little stale.
Alice
I bet.
Cooper in the 70s, where people would just like he'd hold out his hand, they'd bring him beer and
Right, he didn't have to say anything.
whatever. Right, he didn't. Yeah, right. It's not quite like that exactly. So,
Difference between a jump cut and a normal cut? A jump cut is when it's basically the same shot and you're cutting within the same shot. So a jump cut would be like if I cut here, brought this over a little, brought it back.
Right.
That's a jump cut, where it's just that.
right,
A normal cut would be like cutting to a different scene.
like that.
This is still a little jump cutty to me.
Yeah. Only because it's that kind of sort of linear progression, I think.
Right.
It's not the same feeling, but right, it is
But
in
it-
the spirit of
Of a jump cut.
And that's something too, which Valentina I think was saying earlier. That's especially for vlogging today. That's like vlog 101.
Right.
Like you're jump cutting.
Yep, jump cut
Right.
everything because it's the same shot.
Right, same shot.
Same face, same camera.
Today we're talking about
and
blah
just
blah
cutting.
blah, and now I'm here, but I start talking about the second thing. So
Or you cut away to a joke or a laugh
right
or something or
something,
whatever. Yeah.
and then cut back to it again. Right, that's. It's funny how that used to be like. That
that was a big no-no.
It was a faux pas, right? It
Yeah.
was like, don't do that. That's not pro. Always use B-roll if you can.
Right, always cover jump cuts.
Always cover jump cuts.
And now
or-
they're
right.
celebrated.
If you can't
Yeah.
resolve, dissolve. That's what
Right.
the dude I used to say all the time. But now it's legit.
Yeah.
And it works. I think it's funny. It's become stylistic, and actually, again, it doesn't feel like that necessarily here, but it is that it works because you're moving forward.
Right.
And you feel that, and you feel this. It's so cool too. Looking at it in color now, you can see like it's just dripping
drenched in
and
sweat.
Yeah, I mean
Uh-huh.
that's what you want to know your lead singer is doing when he comes off stage at in front of 50,000 people, right?
Right. Like
So-
he gave everything he had on stage.
Yeah, no, that's
Yeah.
awesome. So let's see. People are asking here. Oh, but I'm sad he is so exhausted on tour.
Yeah,
Well,
it's
yeah.
true.
I think that's the ways of the road. That's just how it goes.
Right.
Um,
So the last day we were shooting the video, Dan was pretty tired.
Yeah.
And we didn't get to shoot. I think it went over the course of like 3 days, where we had the day off, where we had Dan for the whole day.
Right.
We waited in his room for him to wake up.
Mm-hmm.
Like we snuck in with a key card, set up the camera, and really like stood over him and waited for him to wake up. And he knew we were going to do that.
Sure,
he gave us his key.
Right.
It's not like we weren't that creepy. We weren't that creepy.
Right.
But he woke up, and like called his wife and checked in at home. I mean, and I thought about using that. It was almost a little too personal.
Too personal, yeah.
Because you could tell he really missed his family, missed his daughter. Yeah.
Did you capture the whole phone scene? Actually?
We rolled
Really?
for the whole first 40 minutes. He was awake. Like we followed it in. He washes his face. He closes the door, takes a shower, opens the door. We're still rolling.
Right.
He comes out, grabs his bag. Like, all right, let's go.
Right.
It's like, okay, let's
now,
do it.
I know tomorrow we're going to talk more about like Easter eggs when we get on top.
Oh yeah.
But having heard you talk about that, and actually just really thinking again about some of these backstage black and white scenes, A Hard Day's Night, which kind of documents the Beatles and the height of Beatlemania. What in the first 10 minutes of the movie, what you see is them basically being ushered from press room to hotel room to bathroom, and it's chaos.
Right, and it's not fun.
No, and they just keep trying. The joke of the whole film is they just keep trying to get away from it.
Right, it's true.
They just kept getting pulled back in, but really, there's scenes where they're talking to their spouses, and it's of course it's actually shot black and white in '64. So, and it has that. This has a very similar feel. It's almost too real.
Yeah.
And like I can imagine the phone call scene, and you're tight on his face,
right.
and maybe he's listening, he's not talking, so.
And you can hear her voice through the phone
a bit.
And she's asking how it's going.
Right.
And he's being a good sport.
Right.
And making it sound a little better than he really probably was.
Right.
Because he's a good guy.
Because he's a good
and he
guy.
didn't want her to worry.
Right.
And,
but I could imagine that's like you said, it's so personal and so real. It'd almost be hard to it would take away from the song.
Right, because it was like we wanted it to feel heavy, but we didn't want it to be sad.
Right.
Yeah.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
Right. You want to convey the feeling, but then also let the beat take you to another place.
Right.
And if you're crying before you get there, it's going to be hard
to
do.
and so the second or maybe it was the last day we were driving around, Dan probably didn't say 2 words in the car. Right. And there were 4 of us. It was me, Ty, our driver Glenn, and Dan.
Okay.
And Dan brought a book with him that last day. And I don't know if it was just because he was burned out and just didn't want to talk to anybody, or if he just wanted to have an escape or something.
Sure.
So he's reading a book the whole day. Me and Ty are talking to this guy who's driving, who's this really cool, New Zealand driver that we had named Glenn.
Right.
And he's like letting us try foods from New Zealand. He's like, he brought these like terrible little, I mean, I don't want to sound rude, but like these like gross little candies or whatever that are like local.
Okay.
And they're kind of a joke there, and I wish I could remember what they were called.
Anyone from New Zealand in the chat?
Yeah.
Commonly
I love
encountered
New Zealand,
candies
that baritone or
people
tenor.
don't really like.
Thanks, Aaron Coleman.
All right. More questions on color grading. So you don't use Resolve or Speaker. Yeah.
No.
Again, you're doing everything with Lumetri.
Yeah. If it's something I can't do, I'll hire someone that uses that.
Right. But you're doing it in Lumetri.
But when I can do it myself, I will.
Yeah, and it was the same for Fly Iron. It was the same for Believer too. I mean, and yesterday, again, if you can always go back and watch the replays. You can watch them here if you're watching on AdobeLive.com. They'll be archived there for the next 2 weeks. You can always watch the archives, any of the streams from today, immediately after they're done on the Creative Cloud YouTube channel. And yesterday's was particularly cool because, again, so many of those shots they're shot in darkness.
Mm-hmm.
So when you see like the flat version and then what Matt did, which, again, I mean, yes, okay, we had S-curve pretty much across the board, light corrections, but that was it, really. I mean,
those little touch-ups.
It was impressive that you got so much out of it with really you didn't have to do very much, and that I guess is partly your DP,
right?
Again, not because they had endless lighting either.
No, not even. I don't know.
Right.
I'm trying to remember. Other than that battery-powered light, I'm trying to remember if we even had anything else. So I mean, it's crazy.
That's so cool.
I mean, it was very on the fly. And Dan also, he said, "I don't want a big crew."
Right.
And when he first called, he said,
"Probably wanted just you."
He said, "Can it be just you?"
Really? Okay.
He said that, and I said, "It'd be really nice to have one more guy."
Right.
And so
it would be impossible just one person.
I mean,
just
possible, but way
just
harder.
Very, very difficult.
Yeah.
Optical Lunacy is asking, how do you know which clips to cut to when the beat drops?
I mean, it just depends on the song,
It's
I
just a
guess.
feeling, right?
I mean, the song is in charge. So, I mean, always, especially on a music video, though, that I'm cutting to the beat, and I'm just trying to add accent marks to the song that's already a good song.
Right. And this one too, I think we were saying this in the beginning, like, unlike Believer, where it's definitely, you really were going, I mean, yes, things are cut to the beat here, but you have a lot more cuts in this edit that aren't necessarily around a 4/4 time signature, right?
Right.
You're kind of cutting more.
It's a little jumpy and jarry sometimes,
and to the style of the tune. I mean, right?
Right.
It's kind of fitting the mood and the story behind it, not necessarily the next snare drum hit or whatever.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Like, it's not as consistent.
Right.
Yeah.
And I think that's also something that's really easy to overdo too.
Always.
Like when
it's too much on the beat sometimes.
Right. It starts looking like those bad like 90s VH1 commercials.
Right.
Everything was on the beat. Everything. There was never anything that was off the beat. And then they would start using really bad text overlays. You remember pop-up video?
Of course.
Yeah, it was fun.
Yeah.
But then it became really irritating because these things would always pop up on the beat, get in the way of the screen, and it was too much, you know. And you leave like a lot of space here because you've also got a lot going on. You have all the overlays, you're intercutting, the archival footage. You want to let some of that digest too, you know. And I guess that's just a stylistic choice and doing it a lot, right? Because
I guess so. I mean, that's part of it.
I mean, have you ever had them come back and go, it needs to be tighter, like the cuts need to be tighter, or
if anything, they'll ask me to let it breathe more. That sometimes I'll overdo it.
Right.
And it's like, hey, like.
Right.
Come back a little. And that's a good note, you know, because sometimes as an editor you get so invested, and I mean you're underwater in a different way, but but you can't even see your edit anymore because you're so invested.
Right. Sure.
And you have to almost step back and come back again.
And come back to it.
Yeah.
Yeah. And who else? I think that answers your question, right? It's, you know, it doesn't have to be, and ultimately it's a stylistic choice, but you know, too much of anything is probably a little too much. So you know, you have to just kind of use whomever you're working with to kind of offer that second opinion if you're too close to it. Also, the Andre Labs was asking, how'd you get rid of the noise and darkness? And that was with, someone just posted, it was Neat Video, and I believe it's neatvideo.com. And
that was, if he wasn't watching, it was this shot in particular.
Yeah, this is really cool.
I mean, the before and the after looks like there's a little lag here, but the original shot and then what we got, and it's pretty clean when you zoom into that. Well, I guess I'm right here. Yeah, only seeing some of it.
You're also at 400%.
And I'm also at 400%. I'll back off a little. But anyway, like
don't sell yourself short.
But you're not seeing noise is the main thing. You're not seeing much noise.
Can you go to the original and just pump up the exposure like you did so you can?
Yeah, so that would have been this. Yeah.
Now go to 400% on that.
Oh yeah, it's gonna look like garbage.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But that's what you were working with.
Yep.
I mean, this is, so here, look at that.
Yeah, exactly. And sorry, I'm sure I'm using this.
It's a nice looking man with some really bad chroma noise all over it. Right. Look at that. I mean, that's shocking. And it's what we were saying too. Not only did Neat remove the noise, but it allowed you to, again, subtly recolor and adjust.
Right.
And the skin tone looks totally natural.
It really does. Like, the skin tone looks good.
Yeah. Now that's impressive. What's up, Vincent? You thought Matt was saying meat video.
I was. It's my favorite plugin.
That's your favorite plugin. That's a different plugin. Okay. Did Dan have like depression during the shoot or something? Yeah, I think it was, as he said, just
he was tired.
Just too many
he
days.
His family.
Yep, too many days on the road. How'd you come up with the rugby scene? Totally improvised? Yeah. What about the kids? Did you direct them, or did Dan direct them? Or?
Yeah, the rugby scene. I think we flew from Auckland to Christchurch. And we landed in Christchurch. We saw some like teenagers at the airport and said,
"Really?
Hey, you guys want to put together a rugby match on the beach tonight?" And they said, "Okay." And we asked which beach, and we like met them there. But it was like, I mean, so it was somewhat produced, but it wasn't produced. Like, we weren't directing.
Right.
we, you know,
when you asked them,
when we got there, they were already kind of playing, and
okay.
and Dan, you know, we kind of have that scene even where you see Dan off to the side,
right,
kind of waiting to play, and a kid came over, like, come on,
right,
and Dan went out and like played rugby, and they were kind of teaching him how to play.
Sure, right.
But yeah, he actually went out, and like all of his smiles and like
That's real.
all of those
Right.
moments, like Dan was having a really good time.
Right. So now that stuff that was shot, obviously higher frame rate. Can we look at some of that?
Sure, of
'Cause
course.
I know people would love to kind of see.
That would have been probably a little later in the video.
always questions about. Oh, look at him there.
Let me just, yeah. Exactly.
And you could probably, you know what, if you go back to quarter res, so it'll.
Oh yeah,
lag,
good
that lag
call,
will be
good
a
call.
Little less, perhaps.
Yeah. I can't remember if it was before this or after this. I think it's actually before this.
Let me scrub through. Yeah, like those shots are amazing.
Yeah, that turned
Yep,
out
there
cool.
you go.
Yeah, so this, so these were, just shots.
Okay,
This
so
is-
there's the flat
you know,
original again.
The Red Dragon tie was just handheld. In fact, we're running that at full too. We can probably dumb that down a little bit.
Yeah. Yeah, there
You know,
go.
and Dan's like just trying to figure it out. But yeah, these kids had a blast. They all knew who he was. Obviously, you know, the two kids at the airport knew who Dan was.
Right.
Christchurch isn't a huge community.
Right.
And I felt like everyone in that whole city knew
Who he
that
was.
Imagine
right.
Dragons
Right.
was coming to town.
Sure, it's probably a huge. I mean,
Yeah.
it's not like they can have so many. I don't know how many concert venues. I've been
Right.
there only
I
one
mean,
time,
it's-
but
Yeah, there's like
Right.
the one there's like the
Stadium
one big
style.
stadium
Yeah,
thing, and
sure.
and you know, and it sold out, and like the next morning we went to breakfast, and we could overhear people talking about the concert.
all right, yeah,
It's like, oh, that's really cool.
That's really cool.
You know, Dan.
And that's got to feel
Yeah.
good, despite the pain and
The drag.
the drag of having
Yeah.
to recreate it again another night in another city.
Yeah.
But even looking at that, I mean, look at how cool the original was.
Yeah.
It really warmed it up so. In fact, those are some of my favorite shots. of
Oh
yours
yeah,
because-
that was a fun night.
Yeah, just
Yep.
because the look and like the skin to like this one too, the skin.
And that
tone.
was just, you know, drop the blacks a little. You know,
Anything else?
there's obviously,
yeah,
you know,
right,
like
yeah.
just
not much.
not a whole lot.
That's crazy.
I mean, it was, again, we wanted everything to feel real. I mean, the Believer video we just did, I mean, it's very, like, doctored.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it feels like, you know, someone was asking if it was supposed to feel like a video game.
Right.
This is the opposite. We wanted this to feel
Real and
unproduced,
right,
and real,
and raw.
and I feel like it does.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, there are a lot of cuts, but you don't see Dan acting a whole lot in this.
Mm-hmm.
You know, Dan was just Dan. He was just thinking about things, and we were just catching him in these moments where he was, obviously pondering things and.
Right. So if
Yeah.
someone's asking, and you talked about this yesterday because you were talking about all of the the push and pull,
Sure.
how you do like camera movement and shake in Premiere. You don't really have any on this video. I don't
No,
think.
not
Okay.
this one.
Yeah. But I can, if we want to show it. But I mean, he was actually just using.
For
position,
Believer,
yeah.
it was just old school.
Right,
It was
position,
just
scale,
keyframes,
keyframes, right?
yeah,
Yeah.
and then just moving it or bumping it up or whatever. So,
Right. And you could do, Andre. You could do if you're trying to simulate, horizontal or vertical shake. You could keyframe it. Probably easier to go into After Effects.
right, definitely.
And use, there's lots of different effects and plugins and expressions that can wiggle or shake.
They can simulate
yeah,
that.
that can simulate that. There's also, since we were talking about plugins before, Red Giant has a sweet
That's right.
misfire that does like the gate weave. Now that's a bit more film related, but
Right.
I'm sure there's newer ones now that again simulate that kind of handheld roguey
Right, just
style.
kind of the jerky,
the
yeah.
jerkiness God, that's another one. So and again, probably not much done, but
Right.
it's just so
Just
powerful.
a little accent, yeah.
It's so
And then-
powerful, and you really
And adding the black too
Right.
really does something.
it absolutely does. It absolutely does.
These are probably just they're black slugs, and they're just cropped to 87%.
Yeah.
So that one's cropped on the bottom 87%,
Right.
and this one's just cropped on the top 87%. I mean, obviously, just like a simple thing, you could always just set your project settings to that aspect ratio to
Right.
get the same look.
However,
I don't know.
You don't want to do that because you can't upload that to most places.
Yeah, if you exported it in the native,
Right.
you could, but you could always export with the black bars, right?
Oh yeah, no, absolutely.
Okay.
That's what I'm saying. So yeah,
Okay.
if you were to actually export the
Yeah.
equivalent of a 2:3:5 to 1 frame size,
Right.
A lot. I mean, I don't even know. Like, I don't know if Vimeo even accepts some. You know, there's different certain aspect ratios they won't.
That they won't,
and they'll
right.
automatically add letterboxing or pillar boxing
To something.
To some things.
Right.
So, yeah. So this is just unbelievably effective and really just kind of works. Oh, nice. Fly Pavilion saying the director that edited Deadpool. Yes, I forgot about that. Tim Miller released his Premiere presets for handheld shake
Oh,
effects.
that's really cool.
Yeah.
Right on.
Yeah.
I'll check that out.
And it's yeah, drag and drop, and it's just key
Really,
framed.
and it just has
Yeah,
it.
just has
That's
it.
awesome.
Yeah, and it really is.
It really sells it.
Yeah, it's like
Cool.
just as you've seen them. Yes, that is where they are. What is the best format to export a video in? From Josh Brown. Well, as you were saying before, so Vivo, probably the largest provider of music video on
Right.
YouTube, certainly. ProRes 422
HQ. That's their master spec.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So it just depends on what it is, though. I mean, if you're exporting a video for your friend to upload to
Right.
YouTube,
Right.
It doesn't necessarily have to be that high quality. I don't know if Vivo has like a back door with their compression.
Mm-hmm.
Most things on Vivo always look a little like the compression was a little better.
Right, right.
I've uploaded 422HQ myself,
Right.
and it doesn't usually look as good.
Right. No.
So
there's
I
gonna
think
be-
there is
yeah.
they're getting some kind of polish or backdoor treatment or something.
for
But
sure. And yeah, just on that, I mean, yeah, if you're going to any web medium in general, we have presets specific to YouTube, Vimeo, Facebook, Twitter, which we worked with each of them to figure out the proper settings, the best settings. There's still going to be some compression on there, and that's just how it is.
right.
And that's all H.264. We have H.265, the high efficiency next generation, and it does look better.
Right.
And it's a little smaller, but most places don't allow you to. They don't accept H.265 yet. You know, if that even becomes a thing.
Yep.
That's right. It's been talked about for so long.
Right. Yeah, we'll see if it works or not.
We'll see if it works. Like, yeah,
Yeah.
it still really hasn't.
It's not standardized.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Exactly. So yeah, Valentina. So 422HQ versus LT. So LT is typically what's used for your proxy files. It's
a lower bit rate.
it's a lower bit, right? So that's 8-bit. 422HQ is technically 10-bit, right?
So LT was made right after DSLRs came out,
Right.
and it was because DSLRs didn't have a big bit rate.
Right.
And if you were exporting a 422HQ file from something you shot on a DSLR, you were basically blowing it up, and you were it was empty space.
Right.
It's like,
Right.
you had your glass of water that you had
Right.
filled up to a certain amount.
Right. Well, and then
It doesn't matter how tall the glass is. There's
Right.
still only that much water.
And this was part of where Premiere and Final Cut sort of got into this thing. And actually, there's a really old video of me talking about this very thing, about
Really?
transcoding and what it meant. Because they would say, right, if you're just doing DSLR, transcode into 422LT, because, right, you're not...
'Cause
it doesn't
that's all
buy
it
you anything.
needs. Yeah.
But if you're trying to edit a film, music video, and you're
Mm-hmm.
a pro, you will transcode into 422HQ because you need it to be in 10-bit. And if it's not in that,
Mm-hmm. Right.
you're editing in 8. When we happened around that same time, and of course, and there you had to transcode. It couldn't play H.264 natively anyway, so you had to
Right.
transcode into ProRes or something. On the Premiere side, you're always working in a 32-bit float container. So that's why you never had to. So even today, if you take DSLR from a 7D or 5D, which is 8-bit, you throw it in the timeline, you throw Lumetri on it, you have the same degree of latitude as if you'd gone to a 10-bit ProRes. It doesn't buy you anything,
Right.
in theory. What's lost at the sensor is lost at the sensor. But you're working in this greater bit depth, so when you export, for instance, if you're using like vignettes or even a fade from black, if you were in LT in Final Cut, you're going to get banding.
Yeah,
right?
that's true.
Right. Here, you won't.
Right.
As long as you don't apply 8-bit effects. And that's why in the effects panel, if you notice, we have like the 32 button that indicates 32-bit effects. We still have a lot of 8-bit effects in both After Effects and Premiere. So if you mix 8-bit effects with 32-bit effects,
You'll see it.
your render's going to look 8-bit. Versus if you keep it all 32-bit, it'll maintain that higher level.
Cool.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
Oh, that's definitely more than I knew.
Good one, Valentina. Trolling. She's trolling you now. All right. Awesome.
Oh, and I didn't see Valentina. Oh, gotcha. Perfect.
Matt, can you show us how you export?
Sure.
Now this is you'll have all the same presets.
So I've already got my in point and out point. Here at the top, here at the end of the project.
Actually, that's interesting, right? So you always do an into out. I'm still like a work area.
Oh, really?
Guy. I know that's old school. I don't know.
Well, I don't know which one is old school. So I do mine, sequence in and out right here, and then always export QuickTime, and then right here it looks like it was set to ProRes 422. We can change that to 422 HQ.
Right.
So if I were delivering this as a master right now, and then obviously my sequence settings were already the correct settings for what I'm going for, so I could hit match source, and it would instantly jump to whatever my timeline settings were.
Right.
If they weren't, then I can always go in and change that. In this case, they're the same. I don't know. You can tell me, Jason. I always click this when I'm doing a master. I don't know if I'm even adding anything to it or not. What is this box
So
doing
maximum
for me?
render quality, that only affects when you're scaling downward.
Okay.
So actually to have it checked if you're maintaining 1080 isn't entirely necessary.
Okay.
Yeah.
For me, it was like, just in case, I'm going to click that.
Having said that, though, if you scroll up in the panel there's also the maximum bit
Oh,
depth.
I've seen that too.
Right.
Right.
And that you do want checked. In
Okay.
this case, you'd want 48-bit, right? So that it's actually creating a 24-bit master.
Right on.
So that you do want checked if you want the highest bit level possible for that master. But maximum render quality, the benefit there is really if you're downscaling.
That makes sense. Cool.
And it is like a significant difference too. And it does take longer to render.
Oh, I'm sure.
So there's a little bit
with
of
all that
trade-off
extra bit
there,
depth.
but yeah.
Name your project, put it where you want to put it,
Right. And
hit export.
yeah. And of course you can queue too, which is nice to kind of background render, but export is going to use all of the resources that your machine has. So particularly probably in the cases where you were exporting, you need to throw everything at that export.
Right.
The media encoder, which shares the same RAM architecture with Premiere and After Effects and Audition and Prelude, you allocate memory. So when it's in focus, it's using X amount. But the point of background rendering is that you can go and do other things. If you choose the export button that you just saw in Premiere, it's a modal dialogue, right? So you can try going to another app. You can try going to the web or to Word or Outlook or Mail.
Sure.
It's going to be painful because it's using every resource, everything to give you the fastest export. So you don't want to click away if you're doing export there because all the resources are focused for that process. Whereas queuing uses the background rendering and frees up however much you've allocated for background, that's what it'll free up.
Right.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
I'm learning so much.
So let's see, who else? It sounds silly, but I struggle knowing when an edit is finished and needs nothing else. Any tips, or is it just preference? Yeah, you were kind of talking about this
It's
yesterday.
never done.
It's never done.
It's never done. It's done when someone needs it to be done. It's done when the buzzer sounds.
Right.
Sometimes you beg for extra time after the buzzer sounds. But, I mean, with Roots, with Believer, with On Top of the World, with the ones I've done, all of them I wish I had had another week or more to keep touching it up.
Right.
So
now, is this the scene? This is the big scene with all the overlays?
So this is so it looks like I named this underwater bridge timing. So you can see this is Dan actually singing underwater. Looks like still not wanting to really play back.
Yeah.
It's just choking on it. But
now this has already been slowed down.
and I added neat video to it.
Right. Okay.
And I exported
And
it
you exported
and
it,
brought it
right.
in as a new clip because it was, I mean, I had my one tiny light,
Right.
but it was dark.
It was dark, right? And because again, if you're joining now, it was recorded at. He sung it at 2.5 times speed.
Right.
So, and it's really, that's amazing too. I'm still in shock that he could even.
Oh, I know.
Yeah.
That he could be that accurate.
Yeah.
Singing that played back the way it was played back. I exported this too. This is where I just took a whole bunch of pictures of Dan and just lined up his eyes from frame to frame to frame, just kind of showing him growing up, or you know.
Oh, and I was going to ask you about that.
Not in a
actually.
particular order.
And it's an image a frame.
Oh yeah.
That's why this is so powerful too. Because actually, I was
Yeah.
I'm watching it on and you can scrub in Vivo,
Yeah,
but it's
not really.
not frame
yeah.
accurately. So
Right.
and I'm going, well, it's so fast. But I thought, well, if it's frame, maybe it's 2 frames. Maybe you wouldn't. No, it's yeah. That's amazing.
Yeah.
That's cool.
This is another shot I cleaned up. Whenever you zoom in on something a little too far, you can always see it.
Oh, nice.
This was Dan here, and I pushed in on it, so I dropped neat video on it, cleaned it up, as you can see.
Nice,
So I
yeah.
renamed it Dan K Street, clean. So
And again, another example of shooting higher res to recompose in a lower frame size timeline.
right,
You can see he's got sort of a mid shot of Dan here.
exactly.
But ultimately, and it's not it's as sharp, it's as beautiful, as pristine, because you're just and probably that's almost probably pretty close to if you just
Yeah, let
the
me see
6K.
if I had just let the 100 drop in.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's pretty close.
It's close, maybe a little
Right,
less.
a little
but yeah.
less, right? Yeah.
But yeah, that's the idea.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So you're down about 25% or so. Just about. Yeah. That's pretty cool. Yeah. Those are so. And you're right. So just little subtle. I mean, just brought up some highlights there, and it's so. What kind of glass were you using on there? Do you remember the glass?
It wasn't fancy.
Yeah.
Yeah, it really wasn't. It may have been EF glass on this.
Well, I was gonna say,
shoot.
is it Canon glass? I was actually.
It
Gonna say
really,
that.
it really could have
Kinda-
been
yeah.
where we were on an EF mount.
No,
'Cause
Canon glass is good, but
It
again,
is.
it's
It's
not
like,
Zeiss. But,
no,
yeah.
it's not. It's,
Right.
It was like riding in cars. In fact, I'm gonna go back and see. I've got 2 drives here because I've got sloppy, but.
Oh, thanks, Kevin.
But yeah, I think we can see it. Oh, there's me and Dan walking back from one of the scenes. Yeah, I can see red.
Yep, that's right. Okay, yep.
here.
EF, definitely an EF mount, for
EF
sure.
looks like a 16 to 35.
16 to 35.
Maybe?
One of my favorites, f2.8. Yeah.
Yep, good
That's a great
lens.
one.
Not always the lens that you want to use,
Right.
but when you're going run and gun, a
Right.
PL mount lens that would have been,
Oh yeah.
significantly bigger and heavier
Yeah. No, not.
when you have no crew and you're hiking who knows where,
Yeah.
going up into these rocks and whatever. Oh yeah, and then there it is right there. You can see it with
Oh yeah.
some EF glass. This is the rugby,
The rugby
gang that showed
gang,
up. There's
yeah.
Ty, the DP.
So were they just
Dan.
freaking out that Dan was? I mean, they must have
Oh,
been
yeah.
freaking out.
Yeah.
Just like.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Before we showed up, the ones that were there were saying to the 2 at the airport, they're like, he's not really coming. Like,
Right,
we're all getting,
right, we're gonna go there.
We're all getting punked.
We're getting punked, right?
Like,
yeah.
Dan's not really coming.
Yeah.
Yeah, there we are on the beach right there. That's a good picture of me. I like that one.
I
like
sure.
that.
I'm screwing with it. Come on. B. Norwood, what was that montage of his face and eyes nested all together? I didn't see all the little cuts.
That's because I did it on a different sequence.
Right.
So I took all of the pictures, laid them back to back to back to back to back,
Right.
exported them. And the reason I exported them is because I'm probably also doing a little push. Yep, you can see that right here. I've got keyframes.
Yep.
In fact, I went past 100%
Uh-huh.
because the pictures weren't very high res in the
Right.
first place.
Right.
And some of them were even clips from video that I pulled stills from. And
right.
it was old SD video.
Right.
And so, yeah, the reason I exported them is because I wanted to be able to do that little push.
Right.
I know I can do that with a nested sequence, and there's no right or wrong.
There's
with
no right or
everything.
wrong,
There's
and-
always a million ways to do everything.
Right. And this way, you had the ability to go, oh, I'm pushing too far. Oh,
Yeah.
I need to go 7% more.
Exactly.
Right. You render it out, you lost that time, that sucks.
Right.
So, yeah, no, that makes a lot
And
of
then
sense.
lining it up so that these eyes and these eyes
Yep.
are in the same place when
Mm-hmm.
it lands. So
Yeah, that was no small time.
Yeah,
that
that-
must have taken some time.
it did, yeah, just laying down and then sizing them up.
So 2 questions. One is, for a video like this, which is approximately, 4 minutes or so?
Yeah, that sounds about right. Oh, I've
Yeah.
got it right here, 358.
Oh, yeah, okay. Yeah, so someone's asking, how long does it take to render? That's entirely dependent on
It's
your
all the
system.
computer.
The amount of RAM, if you've got GPU acceleration, if you're using CUDA versus OpenCL versus Metal versus software only. Yeah, it's just going to vary. So you can't really, and it'll vary what codec you're going to as well.
It's true.
So yeah, it's kind of all over the map. Also, what plugins you're using. If you're
Right.
using, noise reduction.
Neat video is heavy.
It's heavy, so it's worth it but it takes a little bit longer to render when it's being used. What did I see? There was another one too. About the best edit that you've done that doesn't need any major changes in your opinion, and then which one would you like to delete forever, if you can
Oh, man.
name them.
I won't say the ones that I would delete
Delete
forever.
forever? Okay, right.
There are
Nice.
probably too many to list.
Oh, come on.
Okay, there's one.
Yeah, like your favorite. What's the best of you, Matt?
There's one that I did, and I did it all in Premiere.
Mm-hmm.
Can I open this up? Can I go down this road right here?
Yeah, you can do it.
Okay.
Do it.
This is a video that I did on the fly. There was a band that I'm friends with that also lives in Utah. I don't know if I even have a connection here.
We shall see.
Maybe not.
Oh, no. Should be.
Anyway,
Okay.
there was a video where I showed up to a home. We were going to do a performance session.
Mm-hmm.
They were just going to play a song in a really cool-looking family room. And I went with my friend Aaron and my friend Corey. And Aaron brought a DSLR, I brought a DSLR. We were just going to shoot the band doing their song.
Maybe I can
right?
get to it.
Yeah, cool. So just Mido, M-I-D-E-A-U,
Mod.
and then Mod.
Hold on, we're going to try and
And
see.
it's not the most impressive edit in the world. It was one of those where it's like under the circumstances.
Right.
And knowing that I did it all in Premiere. And so for
That's
me,
awesome.
I love it.
Minimum
Yeah, that's
official?
the one,
Okay.
uh-huh.
So here, let's see. Here, Michael, I'm going to add a plug in real quickly. Should just pop right in here.
It's like Aaron Coleman, who I just mentioned, who helped me shoot it.
Oh, nice.
Looks like he's on.
Oh, nice.
What's up, Aaron?
Hey, Aaron. That's awesome. Okay. And someone was just asking. Are you seeing me? Oh, nice. Oh, perfect.
And sorry if I'm derailing everything, pulling up this random edit.
No. That's they're asking. So,
Okay.
But someone was asking an alternative to ProRes. I would say GoPro Cineform, very popular. You'll have that
H.264.
H.264 if you're looking for a compressed flavor.
Mm-hmm.
DNX HD or DNX HR, and then specifically for the PC side. But GoPro Cineform is kind of my other go-to outside of ProRes. All right, and here we'll just do audio from the. Oh, actually, do you want me to send it through HDMI, Michael, or should I just do it
Sorry, guys.
speakers?
I feel
I'll
like
just do
I'm
it through
derailing
speakers.
us.
Okay. All right, let's check it
So
out.
here's what I want to explain. So we got to the house. I saw how cool the house looked, right?
Okay.
And I thought, I don't want to shoot a performance video anymore. I want to shoot something more conceptual.
Right.
And so all we had were DSLRs and a tripod.
Okay.
And we were just going to shoot it all handheld. Oh, and we brought like some audio gear. Like
Okay.
we had
Yeah.
you know, a
Zoom or
zoom
whatever,
and
yeah.
a boom pole
Yeah,
and,
yeah.
and just some really simple
High-end
stuff.
stuff.
Yeah, exactly. And I said, let's just shoot portraits of it's Spencer and Libby, just two people in the
Okay,
band.
yeah.
I said, let's shoot portraits of them around this cool kind of mid-century modern styled home. Sitting in front of the fireplace,
Yeah.
standing in front of different pictures on the wall, sitting in different chairs. And they were all just shot static on a tripod.
Okay.
But the whole idea was, because the house was wood paneled, I want it to be tracking the whole time in post. So you'll see right here.
Mm-hmm. You can keep narrating as we.
Yeah, and so
yeah.
all of this camera movement was just done in Premiere with just position, where I just took the position and just sliding it all out. We lit the whole thing with just a China ball from IKEA. Like,
Really?
yeah, and I really like how this one turned out. This is one where I wish I had done pre-production, obviously,
Right.
because we just showed up and made it. But as an
But
edit,
it's damn seamless. I mean,
yeah. So there were just lots of masking, lots of
to say creative masking to kind of
edge
simulate.
feathers,
Right.
you know.
Right. A lot of edge feathering.
I put a lot of doorways to cover up seams. I put pictures on walls. I put
Okay,
things
so
in pictures.
a question about that.
This-
So the doorway. Okay, no, that all right. That was real
Yeah,
there. Okay,
exactly.
So a lot of them like just like a Photoshop. You cut
yeah,
out
I would just
doorway and
put the seam of the
seam
door,
it and try to move it with the.
and you'll
the
see
image.
that some of them, but like as an edit, I really like this edit, and just knowing that I did it. In fact, it was with a 5D. It was a 5D Mark III.
Oh.
Two 5D Mark IIIs, mine and Aaron's. And then just a lantern from IKEA. We probably had a C-stand, maybe one, because we weren't planning on doing any of that. We were just going to shoot all this in the front room at sunset.
Right.
Anyway,
this is cool. And this is 5D?
This is all a 5D Mark III.
5D is still, I mean...
Yeah, great camera.
It still looks great. No one would say, oh, this is some crappy DSLR. It's...
This is one I can still watch, and it doesn't bother me. There's one effect that if I could go back and do more of it, I would. And it's a scene. I don't know how far into it is.
You're doing some like After Effects or just corner pinning there, and
no After Effects. This is all Premiere.
All Premiere.
Everything you see is Premiere.
That's impressive.
And then just like adding little drop shadows under the pictures.
I can see some edge feather there, a little garbage mat.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly.
Nice.
But there's a scene where he so we put him on his back. He's at the bottom of the stairs and he throws the ball.
Oh.
And I wish, because that was like one of the last things we did, I thought, now a really cool video would be where if we did that a bunch of times with different ways. Anyway, you get the idea. We don't have to watch the whole thing.
But that's super cool, man. This is cool.
But that's one that I can still stand by. And it was no After Effects, all Premiere, and a 5D.
Nice.
And no pre-production. And the band the whole time was like, what are you going to do with this? Because they didn't get it. They didn't get it until they saw it. So, like,
this is probably one of those static drop-ins right there?
Yep, I pulled that.
Dude.
Cut it out of another door and then just...
Well, and what's cool is it's there, and because of the focus on her, it's slightly blurred because you're
I just put a little Gaussian blur on it.
A little Gaussian blur to simulate that depth of field.
Right.
And it sells it.
And some of these were... it would start out a little blurrier, and then as it got to the center, I would make it a little sharper, and then as it came out of the frame again, I would make it a little blurrier again. Anyway, it's not a perfect video by any means, and maybe it's a little too boring for some people, but I dig this video.
This is cool. Count Zero saying creativity at work,
low
prep, decent gear, one soft, and this is his favorite edit. Yeah.
Right on.
Yeah.
And then just end where we started.
So Vincent's asking, what's your signature editing thing that you do in your projects?
If anything, I'm maybe more of I'm the guy who lets the music control the edit.
Right. And you said this yesterday too, yeah.
And I say it too much probably. Because people will ask me, and it's like I'm not in charge. The song is in charge, and I am just trying to keep up with the song. And when it comes to like Imagine Dragons, their song is always going to be better than anything that I can make, and so I'm just trying to keep up with that.
Right. Well, and I think too, I mean, although certainly looking at Believer and Roots, you can find some similarities. And when you see On Top of the World Tomorrow, totally different
way
game.
Different.
Yeah, so different.
Yeah.
But maybe that's kind of your signature, is that you, as you just said, you adapt.
It's adapting.
It's adapting to whatever the music dictates, or whatever the subject dictates.
Right.
And I can't wait for you guys to see this one. And really, we're gonna dive deep into like color and costuming and a lot of other things tomorrow. We've got, let me see, what's the time here? We've got we have 2 minutes. Oh my goodness.
Oh, we're almost there. That was
almost
fast.
there. Man.
Yeah.
What a day. So
fun.
any last minute questions for Matt? Now we'll be back again tomorrow, 1 p.m. Pacific time, showing On Top of the World. Again, we're going to show the video, talk about the process. You'll see the timeline, go through color grading.
We can talk more about Believer too if they want.
We can talk more about Believer. And that's, of course, if you have any additional questions about Believer or Make the Cut, I mean, this is the man you want to ask. And we can always reference back those projects if people ask. Don't forget that we'll commence again tomorrow morning at 9 a.m. Pacific time here at Adobe Live. Coming up in 6 minutes, we've got Sarah Dici and John Hill.
Cool.
We're going to show you their editing workflows and kind of talk about how to get successful on YouTube and how to make videos that people want to watch on YouTube. So you'll want to stick around to that, and that'll go until 5 p.m. Pacific time. Thanks so much for all the engagement. Thanks so much for all your questions. Thanks so much for tuning in. And Matt, once again.
Yeah, it was fun.
Thanks for being here, brother.
Yeah, thanks for teaching me some things.
This is all, come on,
I have a
man.
lot to learn.
Thanks. Hey, no, dude,
Yeah.
it's such a pleasure. And we thank all of you. So, are we ready, Michael? All right, we're out. We'll see
Thanks,
you back
guys.
tomorrow. Take care, everybody. Bye-bye.